It is now 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. on Monday, October 7th, 2019, and I'll open the Wellfleet Select Board meeting. We will start with announcements, open session, public comment. Note that public comments must be brief. The board will not deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during announcements and public comments. Are there any announcements or comments from the board? Yes, Courtney.
I have an announcement from the DPW. The Department of Public Works will be overseeing pavement overlays on the following roads starting the week of October 15th. Sections of Gull Pond Road from Route 6 to Chris Drive, Schoolhouse Hill Road, sections of Long Pond Road, Main Street to Buttrey Way, Coles Neck Road, and Browns Neck Swan Way. Please expect minor delays and potential detours. We will update this notification as we receive more information from the contractor performing the work. Any questions, please contact the DPW at 508-349-0315.
Thank you. Any others? Any announcements from the audience?
Yes. Just want to let everybody know that the Wellfleet will be testing the emergency alert system on Thursday, October 10th at 10 o'clock. Please see our Facebook page or the town's website for notification if you haven't signed up for it already. But this Thursday we'll be doing a test of the system.
Okay, great. Anyone else from the audience? Okay. Moving on to appointments. We are now going to, let me get my paper so I get all my wording right. So many of you probably know that Chief Facette is retiring and will be ending his stint on October 31st of this year, and that Lieutenant Michael Hurley, who I think everybody knows also, is being requested to move into his position. So that's it in a nutshell. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Thank you.
Are we there yet? Okay. So yes, it's been very good, very long, and hope you continue to ride your bike and do good things wherever you go. You've been good for the town. We'll miss you. And we hope you'll visit us like on July 4th weekend and help out at the beach.
On the bike.
On the bike, good, thank you. Okay, so may I have a motion?
Mike, would you like to come
Yeah.
up here when they make the motion? Just
Yes. Do we have any like certificate or flowers or cake?
I'll make the motion, Janet.
Okay. You want to bring your daughter with you?
Yes.
You want, so she doesn't cry? Yeah.
Mom's here too.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, you ready? This is the changing of the guard. I move to appoint Lieutenant Michael P. Hurley as the acting police chief from 11/01/2019 to 2/20/2020, and as the permanent police chief effective 2/21/2020.
Second.
I'm just going to say all in favor? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I could just
Yes, you may.
quick word. I know it's a long meeting. I want to start just by thanking my chief and Dan for having the support and the confidence to move me into the position. It's humbling. The support of the board, a lot of police departments don't go through transitions that are smooth and directional and where we're heading. So you have a great police department, and since day one, they saw a transition plan put in place that really affects the morale of the department. So I want to thank the board for that. And my family, my wife Kate, my daughter, my son Joshua, and Evan. Just want to thank them. They're,
Yep.
you know, there's long days, long nights, middle of the night phone calls, holidays and stuff, and they let me do what I love to do, so.
Great, well, we appreciate it. And I'll say that it's a smooth transition because Chief Facette and you have made it a smooth
Made it so.
transition.
Thank you.
very willing and easy transition.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then may I have the second motion for emergency management?
Hang on.
I move to approve the contract for Police Chief
Nope,
Mike.
nope, this one.
So the,
We don't have it yet.
the
Didn't
contract
come
is not
through.
back from the attorneys yet, so we're
Oh,
going to
okay.
postpone that
Sorry.
until the next meeting. It's going to be very similar to Chief Fissett's. So I'd ask that you just move to appointing Mr. Hurley, Chief Hurley, as the Emergency Management Director.
Yes. I move to appoint Acting Chief Michael P. Hurley as the Emergency Management Director, effective October 9th, 2019.
Second.
Thanks, Chief, for that job.
I think I'm on board to help you. I think I went to one of those courses on emergency
calling.
management, so we'll talk, yeah. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor? Great. Welcome aboard.
Thank you again.
I see.
Thanks.
All right, and now, I want to make sure, yep, we now have the town accountant's contract, and our town accountant is here. Do you want, yes, come, I know you were here at another meeting, but you might as well come up and let people get to know you. So I welcome Jean Ferrari. You've been here 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Starting week 3 today.
Yeah, great. And of course, everything's going well and easy.
Yeah, just getting accustomed to Wellfleet, the ins and outs and nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
You know, learning the ropes. People have been extremely friendly, extremely helpful. And hopefully make as smooth a transition as possible.
I think so, I hope so.
Madam Chair?
Any questions or
Yeah.
comments, or
Through
moving
you,
along?
Madam Chair, Kathleen Bacon, welcome to Wellfleet, and
Thank you.
where are you commuting from?
Right now, Brewster, I hail from the thriving metropolis of Athol, which
Right.
is 168 miles away.
Yeah?
We were looking to downsize anyway, downsize out of the house. Nothing is keeping us in Athol, born and bred there, and nothing is keeping us there. The kids have moved away, so, you know, what better opportunity? My wife is, she actually came down this week. Until we sell our house, she's staying there. I'm living in Brewster. She actually came down this week and fell in love with the Cape again.
Good.
So
Good.
she's enjoying it here, and I don't know how else to say it. Being in central Massachusetts and coming here, it's just relaxing. I don't know what
The
else to say.
salt air.
It's-
Salt air does that to you.
Yeah, it's just,
And the ocean, yeah.
You know, it is relaxing. Commute from Brewster is nothing, and we're enjoying it.
Good, great. Any other questions, comments? Can I have a motion if not?
I move to approve the contract for Town Accountant Jean Ferrari and authorize the Town Administrator to sign the contract.
Second, is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Okay, unanimous.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And can I just ask a quick question? Is there anything new in this accountant's contract?
It's our standard contract.
Yeah.
Okay,
So standard that you will see that in some of the pronouns, I left them as her instead of him when I was
Yes.
changing it, so I will make those correct.
that would be good. The pronouns were a bit modern, you know?
I did the best I could looking it over to change he to she and she to he and things like that.
Yeah, it's confusing.
I probably missed a few.
I mean, you're not confused, but, yeah.
It's a matter of opinion.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's stop there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now moving on to the appointment of Elaine Mcelroy to the Local Comprehensive Planning Committee. Elaine's here somewhere. Do you want to get up? Do we need her to get up? There you go. Okay, yeah. Actually, I guess you should come to the microphone. It is kind of my duty to ask why you want to be on it and what are your qualifications, even though we know that. Your qualification is that you're Elaine Mcelroy.
I'm happy to do this because I'm really glad that housing is a piece of the whole that we're looking at for our town, and to integrate all of it together. And, you know, I've been involved for over a decade now, and happy to, you know, talk with the rest of the committee and, you know, work housing into the plan in a positive way.
Great. Any other questions or comments, or you want a motion?
No, question. Madam Chair, through you to Courtney, what number is this appointment now?
This was included in the original 7.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're still at 7.
Yeah, we're 9 total with the 7 representatives, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I should say, I was on the committee when it was
Originally,
first
yeah.
reconstituted, and had to step
That's
back
fine,
for a while, but my work schedule has changed, so I'm available again. Although we are hoping, over the course of the winter, as members of the Housing Authority come and go, that we might be able to send an alternate as needed.
Have we appointed alternates yet?
Yeah, are there any alternates appointed?
Well, so there's no alternates for the local
Yeah.
comprehensive planning committee. It
Yeah.
would just be an alternate to Elaine's representation.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right. So I guess I would suggest that you schedule your time off wisely with the other board members and make sure there's at least a quorum.
yeah.
We have 2 other members willing to, you know, step forward as needed.
So,
Yeah, but
Just
they
to
have to be, they have
represent
to.
housing, yeah.
yeah,
All right.
They wouldn't vote necessarily, but they would be able to express their opinions. So housing is always represented. That's kind of where we're thinking with it.
I'll have to think about it,
Madam Chair?
if that's totally fine. I mean, you know, if I go away for a month, is somebody else going to come, you know? I mean, a committee is appointed,
Okay, so,
but I'll let Helen say something if she's
Yeah,
addressing that issue.
Yeah, there are 2 issues. One is that the Comprehensive Planning Committee maintains a quorum, and I wish all the boards and committees in town would really discuss people's winter vacations together. It's a group
Yeah.
effort. That's the first issue. The second issue is, let's say you're not here, and they can maintain a quorum. There can be somebody from the Housing Authority that just shows up in the audience and can speak to issues if they want to.
Right.
that's what I was
Okay,
insinuating.
but
And-
not
And then the last
vote
thing I
and
was
not-
going to say
yeah.
was, I agree with what Courtney said.
Thank you. I'm going to put that in the record.
Do it. So, in other words, what's really important, though, is that you guys can maintain a quorum, and that you, as a person on a committee, don't miss 4 meetings in a row within a 2-month period. And if you want to, you can come to the Select Board and get a waiver. There's a nice little policy about that.
Okay.
I can just say the LCPC we have not had an issue meeting quorum. Our quorum is 5, and we've been able to have that, so I don't.
Okay.
And I think that Elaine would be probably the only one going away for any certain amount of time, and if even 2 people go away, we're still good on quorum, so.
Okay. And just to finalize it too, is that this is a long time coming. So any more delays is even a longer time coming. So I know you're responsible, so I don't have to.
It was the way we could have a housing representative on.
Yeah.
It was sort of the only way we could make it work.
Yeah.
And we
okay.
very much want to have somebody
Yeah,
there.
no, it's important.
Although we're actually very fortunate that the person who films your meetings is on the Housing Authority also.
Yes.
And we had hoped that maybe she could do both, but she can't, but,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, okay. Okay, may I have a motion?
I move to appoint Elaine Mcelroy as the Housing Authority representative to the local Comprehensive Planning Committee for a 2-year term.
Second.
All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have anyone here from the Energy and
Yes.
Climate Action Committee?
Suzanne Ryan and
Okay.
Carol Agnew.
That's why I know you guys. Okay. Do you both want to come up? Okay.
I'm Carol Maganaw.
Suzanne Ryan.
You can pull it all closer to both of you. Okay, so do you want to explain to the audience what you're here for and to us what you're asking for and what your plans are, please?
Sure. So I don't know how much the general public knows about Wellfleet's participation in the Municipal Vulnerabilities Preparedness Program. But it's all about climate change and how to prepare for it. And in this area, that really means flooding and storm surges, erosion. So Wellfleet participated this last year with the Municipality Vulnerabilities Preparedness Program, which is a state program, in order to become certified for funding. And so now is an opportunity to start looking for grant money to prepare areas that are very vulnerable, such as low-lying roads and beach parking lots and other areas like that. So the Energy Committee is going to start looking for funding for it. And the first thing that we want to do is hire a civil engineer to come and assess vulnerable areas and offer solutions for them. That's the first funding project. So with the town's blessing, we'd like to go ahead and do that.
And so this says that you're requesting you're requesting for a grant writer to fund your request. Is that how I'm reading this right or wrong?
Oh, no. Actually, we're going to, I do have grant writing background, and so we're going to work on it on our own, the committee. And I'm going to, so we don't really need an outside grant writer. We could use help from town staff on some of the particulars that are needed as information to build this proposal.
So have you spoken with the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, Board of Health, and the Cape Cod Commission? Because I know they've done a lot of the background work on this. And what do you say to that?
So we have met with Dan Hort and with the that's
Hillary.
right. So
Yeah.
they're aware that we want to go ahead with this. The Cape Cod Commission, not as of yet.
Because they've done, I don't know what to call it, but they've done the technology to see,
Yes.
along with the Center for Coastal Studies, the mapping. So that is kind of known.
This is in part with that.
So you're looking for the engineer that will say, well, we have to build this up, or this is where you need a seawall, a dike, something like that. Is this somebody that you're asking for, someone who's going to plan to fix it or raise roads and things like
Right.
that?
We're going to work on that MVP, the vulnerabilities
Which is,
report.
I'll say for the audience that that's the state climate mitigation program, is the MVP program.
And so we're going to build upon that and have the engineer just take a closer, more comprehensive look, if necessary, at what needs to be done. But it's really having them go into that area and come up with solutions for it, so.
Okay, Kathleen?
So, as we understand this tonight, you're before us to let us know that you are applying for grants. I commend you on that. It's a very rare occasion where we've got committee members that come before the Board of Selectmen and say, we're not asking you for money, we're telling you that we're applying for grants. Okay, that's the first thing we should get on the table here. Second to that is, you spoke to me prior to this meeting about the possibility of the town coming up with some sort of funding to match a grant proposal.
Yes, this particular grant requires 25% match, and that can be done in kind with funds for staffing. So we assume that town employees would be involved in that to some degree. The application is due in November, so the timing, I mean, we won't be able to get any money from town meeting until after that. But I think we'd like to perhaps do a motion at town meeting asking for money, as was done for the harbor dredging, so that the recommendations of this first grant, we would be able to have matching funds available to start actually doing the improvements.
Okay, so, and then that way you'd get a vote of confidence to know that, okay, so that we're behind you in matching this in some way. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Justina,
So you have one particular grant, mine?
Yes.
say that again, please.
It's one particular grant?
Well, we're going to be pursuing several grants on
Several
this.
grants.
Yes.
So is it just this one that needs a town matching of 25%?
Yes, at this point, that's the only one that we know of that requires that match.
And it's,
But we actually already submitted last week, or the beginning of
Yes,
this
last
week.
week.
Last week, Hillary Greenberg Lemos submitted on our behalf an application to the Barnstable County License Plate Program.
Okay.
And that actually requires a 50% match, and we assumed that we would come up with that with in-kind.
do you know how much money you're looking for?
That grant was for $70,000.
And that's what you estimate the engineer will cost?
That was kind of the upper limit of what we'd been advised.
Advised?
But we got an estimate from Jay, the assistant DPW.
Okay, so you talked and you did some research.
Right, but that's
I'm-
really a stab in the dark. and-
The benefit of going up
Not
to Cape
really.
Cod Commission is somebody up there in a meeting or two can probably tell you what other towns have done, you know what I mean? So give you a leg up on the process. I think it's great you're doing this, and anything I'm saying is meant to be encouraging, but I think if we're starting to, you might want overall grant strategy, right? And go for the low hanging fruit of a day up there at Cape Cod Commission and pick their brains.
Janet?
So I think it's in 2 weeks, the Cape Cod Commission is presenting a, or not presenting,
It's
they're
not
having a meeting here.
It's one more week.
Is it just next week?
I'm going to give
It's,
the
at
date.
At 1 PM.
You're right.
The
you're right.
Monday, the 21st, the
Yeah.
Cape Cod Commission is going to be giving here a presentation about climate change.
And what they're doing and what they're working on. So they've really done a lot of, work on this, and they probably would even know somebody familiar with it that you would hire too, but that's up to you guys.
Janet?
Hold on. So, yeah, numbers would be good. I mean, you're not asking us to approve anything tonight anyhow, you're just telling us your next step. But yeah, I mean, a lot of preliminary thoughts. I'm not going to say preliminary work, but a lot of thought has already gone into this, so I don't want you to spend your time double tracking it or something. But Cape Cod Commission and our DPW and I mean, this kind of ties in with the 208 water plant, and what could tie in with that too, with hiring consultants and stuff. So, anybody have any other suggestions about who they should
Yes.
contact? I'm getting to you.
I have a suggestion.
Relax. Okay,
Yeah.
go.
Go. So you don't have to invent the wheel. The Friends of the Herring River actually could be on the top of your list of people to contact, because the Herring River Project Technical Committee has had to do a huge amount of work on low-lying roads. And they have a lot of knowledge about who you might want to hire and how to go about it. So there's that, and then I was going to announce the Cape Cod Commission's climate change thing here. which
Yeah.
we already did. So you don't have to invent the wheel.
Yeah, so yes.
Oh, yes,
start-
Reassuring.
Yeah, and
so
just start
one other,
gathering, yeah.
one more thing, which is actually, we, I think, have a policy that if a board or committee or a department wants to apply for a grant, they're supposed to run it by us. It may just be departments, but I think it may also be boards or committees. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll think about some of the meetings I go to, who else can help you out.
One more question.
Yes.
Suzanne, how long have you been on this committee?
Okay, my time,
Well, we
it's a few
appointed you.
months.
It's, yeah, it's not 6 months yet, is it?
It's not even 6 months.
I'm
No.
impressed.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
great.
I'm enjoying this.
Good.
It is fun, isn't it? Okay, thank you. I'll leave that on top. So we next have the renewal of license agreement with Thomas Sigia and Kathy Sigia. So would you like to give some background? Do you want us or town administrator to give background or brief?
Dan, you want to give background? You want me to give background?
Go for it.
All right, this is a renewal of a contract we had in place for the last 2 years for the town landing at 325 Payne Hollow Road. Dan and I have spent a lot of time going back and forth with emails, adding and ensuring this contract is the right thing for the public, both those that are in the boating community and also those on the shellfishing side of our community. There's really not much change. We just changed some wording around it to just clarify a lot of things that we agreed to.
Helen?
Yes, thank you for your generosity in keeping this way to the water open, particularly for the shellfishing community. It's basically the same license agreement that we had last year, except I spoke with Mr. Sigia today, and there is one error in it, which is, take a look, in Section 1, Use Purpose Term. Third line down, it says, the harvesting of shellfish, delete from the wild, because in the next, and I confirmed this with Mr. Sigia, it's not just for people who want to harvest from the wild, it's also for agriculture.
Yes, on the-
So delete those 3 words and it's perfect.
From the wild, okay.
And thank you again.
Well, it was our pleasure. It's enjoyable to have
Yeah, thank
neighbors and friends and the community use it. I mean, low tide, you got the shellfish team down here. High tide, you get all the boaters.
Yeah.
It's a great atmosphere, and we're both happy to accommodate.
Yeah.
And can I ask
Thank
one more
you.
question?
Sure.
Does your property go, as is the case under that colonial ordinance of 1641 into the present, does it go out into the water for 100 rods?
Yes, I think it's called riparian rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes out,
Yeah. No, not, well, okay, thank
Yeah.
you,
it goes out into the bay.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Kathleen?
Ms. Chair, through you to Mr. Hort. Is there any way that this could be a 5-year contract? I mean, they're going to have to come back every 2 years.
You want to do 5 years?
If I recall, I think in our discussion, you preferred it to be a 2-year, kind of a
do?
rolling contract sort of type thing.
I think that's how we started, Dan.
Yeah.
We're trying it out. I think we had one issue, and you resolved it, within a week. I'm okay with 5 years. Kath? Yeah, we're okay with 5 years. Don't we have to come here every 2
Yeah.
years?
Yeah, and if something happens, it can always be rediscussed, kind of. Do you want us then to postpone but not have them come back, or can we just amend it?
You can.
Amend the motion?
We'll change it, and then I'll put it in the office for your signature.
Okay.
But you can vote to approve the contract as amended to be a 5-year contract.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
And also those 3 words out, yes.
Kathleen? I'm sorry.
Thank you for your neighborliness and
Yeah, it's
sharing
really great.
with the community. It's,
Well
Wellfleet often was like that in the old days, and really appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. All right, may I have a motion?
I move to approve the license agreement with Thomas and Kathy Sigia owners of the property located at 325 Payne Hollow Road for a 5-year period ending September 30th. What would be the date on that, Dan?
2026?
24.
24? 2024.
Yep. Oh, yeah, okay.
Second.
And adding the amendment, deleting from the wild under section 1.
Correct.
Okay, and Mike seconded. All in
Second.
favor? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep. Okay. So now we're going to discuss the bicycling debate issue, whatever you want to call it. I just want to start off and say that we did discuss this back in June. It got kind of waylaid because one of the select persons wanted to amend the letter or rewrite the letter, and it never happened for a number of reasons. And I don't we never took a vote on it. We do now have a couple of variations of the letter. I will just say personally, as chair of this board, that I take issue with the language, and I also want to say that there's one letter that says we've ignored the public. We haven't ignored the public. I think about this, I talk about it with everybody all the time. We are, so I don't know whose letter to go by. Helen just gave us another letter this evening. But we are working on it with the DCR. They're coming before us sometime in October. So the word halt really means, harsh stop, like no more. And I think the language in one of the letters was to halt this, halt that, and then I'll read it.
Madam Chair, while you're looking for it, may I?
No, let me just read it. It's to halt efforts by the DCR to develop the parking lot and terminus, halt Mass DOT to develop a bikeway alongside, and then direct those departments to collaborate with the town of Wellfleet on bikeway projects the state proposes. So I just tend to go to number 3, where it says direct those departments to collaborate with the town on getting a solution. Okay? So that's my point of view. So, and I just want to reiterate, you're not being ignored. I mean, how can you be ignored, right? We've been getting letters every day. It's been an ongoing thing. We are going to discuss things with them. I understand that some people went to discuss the bike trail with the superintendent of the park. I'm expecting to do that also. That's going to be if there's any decision or money for that, that's going to be years. I would say minimum 5 to 10 years to buy the public land on that. No? Okay. So 1 year, you'll have all the money and all the permission? Yeah.
She needs to go to the microphone.
I can't.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, never mind. I just wanted to know if she had something. That's okay. That the article at town meeting is always those kinds of articles are a non-binding resolution that you can ask or suggest the select board to do something, to move in a certain way, but they don't have to follow it because you can't ask them. So I will also say that we're not taking any comments from the public tonight. We're just voting on whether we want to send a letter and/or the petition to the governor. So that's what we're talking about. So there aren't going to be any comments from the public.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
2 points. The letter you were quoting using the word halt has nothing to do with us. It's a copy of a letter from the
Right.
Concerned Citizens for a Sensible Wellfleet Bikeway. This is something that is nothing to do with the town. Well, it's a lot to do with the town, but the point is, it's not for us to vote on. It's not our letter.
Okay, right.
The draft letter that you got, that Mike and I corrected some typos today, is basically the letter we had in our packet, hard copy, And then
I will,
we
I
did,
want to comment that it was not in our packet until
hold on.
tonight, this
No.
morning.
I just said, Janet.
Okay,
It is not the letter we had in our packet. It's something
I
that
gotta look for that
had
letter.
some syntax changes and some typo changes, but it's basically what Mike wrote, or what was submitted for this
Mm-hmm.
meeting. So it
is
simply
that?
says, town meeting made this vote. There has been a lot of conversation, a good deal of information shared about this. And nowhere in the letter that I'm hoping we will vote to send to the governor, because there's this petition with, a whole lot of signatures, well over 1,000, around 500 from people from here. Although this is something that affects the whole Outer Cape, because we go through that area all the time. It simply says, can you just suspend the work on this and stop paying taxpayer dollars until we look at some other options? This is what's been asked for since last spring, and for some reason, it hasn't been listened to. My impression is that these conversations have only begun to happen effectively, and I think it's a reasonable thing, given the town meeting vote, given the petition, and given that this is not a no-brainer, that we have a little more conversation with particularly the DCR, and that we work with the park, and that we get to something that's safer than, in my opinion, what is being proposed now. That's just me, but I think we should send the letter to get the help from the governor. I think it's a good letter, and it basically represents the people that we are representing, as well as people from the Outer Cape who use this stretch of the highway all the time. And we have to think about them too.
okay. So did everyone get the amended letter that,
Yeah. Draft
Helen,
letter
the dra-
10-2-19? Is this it?
no, and the one that with the, yes, that's it, yeah. Because there's two, the
10-7-19.
one that says 10-7-19.
Yeah.
So Mike and Helen wrote that together?
No,
Okay,
no.
Well, yeah, we drafted.
Basically, it was amended, the letter that I had submitted.
Yeah.
Helen went through, corrected
okay.
typos.
Yeah, you drafted, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, if I may,
yes.
okay. So, just so we're on the same page, this afternoon I realized, we might not all realize what this is all about here, as far as where the location of suspending the bike trail that we're asking for in the letter. And if you look on the page, sorry you guys don't have this, because I wanted everybody to have a map so you could kind of see the second page on that packet. Basically, everyone's in favor of this bike trail getting to Old Kings Highway, which is right down the street from here, the terminus.
Yeah. think
At
we know
that
that.
point, there's really not an issue, because that terminus does not enter a zone like Route 6. So we're really only talking about a small amount of the bike trail that's controversial, extended, a small amount of extension that's controversial. And basically, the problem is, as far as I see, is a public safety issue. Because if we have the rail trail, which is a recreational bike trail, terminating at the highway, and then we have DOT bike lanes on the highway, we're essentially inviting an increase in recreational bicycle traffic. And we know there's like three types of bicyclists. There's like avid cyclists, commuters, they're on the highway. And then there's recreational bicyclists, and they're not always experienced. They don't necessarily know the area. There can be up to 1,000 people on that bike trail a day. And if we're terminating, and you can see on that first page there, was the plan originally by the DCR was to actually extend directly into Route 6. Now, that came
Right.
under some criticism, and they changed that plan.
Changed it, yeah.
Now it terminates 50 feet away from Route 6, but it still picks up another bike trail that goes through about 14 curb cuts in commercial businesses that are extremely active. 25,000 cars in the summer pass back and forth in that area, taking left turns in and out of those businesses. So the letter is not asking to halt construction of the bike trail or the extension of the bike trail. It's asking to suspend the planning and construction at Old Kings Highway. So it's probably a quarter mile, would you say, of
Probably, yeah.
of controversial area
Yeah.
where the bike trail would terminate. Now, we're not asking them to stop doing it forever. We're just asking for a little bit of time because the DCR basically said in the last public meeting that
When was that? Was that the one in the June? in
22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, so they basically said, okay, we hear you. There was a lot of criticism of the bike trail at that meeting.
Yep.
We're going to take this back. We're going to take everything into consideration. We're going to redesign, and we're going to come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really happen, and they've sort of been bulldozing forward. And
And how have they been bulldozing forward? Because I haven't heard any.
well, they purchased the
plans.
land.
Okay, yep.
They've not changed. They've not altered
Okay.
the plan since June, and they haven't come back to the public. And
Okay.
they basically have ignored the public comment. So when we had a town meeting vote, it may be non-binding, but it compels us to act, at least have an up or down vote on whether we should send a letter or not.
Okay. So I just want to interrupt. So I thought when you said bulldozing, that they were actually out there bulldozing. So that's why I questioned. So they did,
Metaphorically bulldozing their way.
they have said a number of times that they're coming back in October with a new plan. And we'll work,
DCR.
yeah. Yeah, yes, they have. Yes, they have.
The DOT.
DCR too. They're supposed to
Yes.
come back too. So I'm not taking comment. They have. So, again, my point is that keep the conversation going because they are going to work on it. I just don't see the DCR doing something really dangerous that goes against the town. So to me, this language and sending it to, yeah, I know, laugh what you want, but, really. What? Well, how do you know they haven't come back? I'm not taking comments from the audience. It's really hard not to talk, but we're not. This is between us. We've already talked about it. We're just voting for this, to whether to send this letter or not, So that's what we're doing tonight, because we all know how you feel, and you probably know, well, you're going to find out how we feel too. So it's really about sending this letter, as a select board, sending this letter to the governor or not. That's what's on the agenda tonight.
Janet, in fact, the DCR has done surveying in that property that they bought.
Okay, I know.
And they also, were, I think, doing the initial thing for putting a pole in there. And they have used taxpayer money to do things on that property already, not to mention buying it.
Okay.
And it's surprising to me, given the abutters meeting that I attended, and the town administrator was there for most of it, he had to leave early.
And when was that? Last week or so, or a long time ago?
No, that was back
Like in June?
Yeah, it
Again
was
in
back
June.
in June, and it was attended by DOT and DCR people.
Yeah.
There was a lot of information given, and
Okay.
both agencies clearly acknowledged that they were aware of each other's plans and had been working together for quite some time.
Yeah, I know.
And
yeah.
now they have actually spent money on it already. And this letter basically just asks to be able to enter the conversation, the dialogue for the planning together, which is completely appropriate. It's what we did with the roundabout that they wanted to give us. We
Right.
gave them
That was
substantial
DOT.
feedback.
Yeah.
Right.
This is DCR.
Right.
Janet, I'm going to say a few things here.
Okay.
First of all, Mike, thank you for all the stuff that you've brought to us. No new information from you here tonight, okay?
Sure.
First thing. Second of all that 1,000 bikes stopping out here by the senior center, that's not going to be a danger? Where's that going to go? I mean, this is land that the state owns. It's the last 3 miles, I said it before in June, it's the last 3 miles of state-owned railroad bed. They're not going to walk away from it. How can we work with them and make this the safest possible thing we can do? I don't feel that by stopping it out here at Old County Road gives us any safety measures with 1,000 bikes a day and senior citizens leaving the senior center and driving out on Old County Road. I don't see that as being safe. Second of all, when you see the DOT's plan in conjunction with that parking area for a crosswalk with a flashing yellow light where someone can cross with a bike and a pedestrian, you laugh at that. But if Miles
want
Tibbetts had
safety.
had a place to cross the highway with a light, would it have happened? Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we've asked for.
Okay, can I respond quickly to that?
So I think we all, I think
Well, no,
we're actually,
I'm not ready.
Okay,
I-
all right,
I would
okay.
like to just continue the debate here for a second, because the issue is not the DOT project. Like, I don't have a
Okay.
problem with current use on Route 6. That's not the issue. You say that it's not safe coming and stopping at Old County Road, but it is going to come and cross Old County Road. The situation is that the DOT project gives bicycle lanes and lights. That's fine. We want people who are currently using Route 6 to have a safer path. I don't know anybody who doesn't want that. The people who are using the rail trail are basically being invited onto that path at this terminus. There's not really any other way to look at it. As soon as they come out of there, there's bike paths dedicated that give the illusion that you may be continuing on a safe bikeway. It is not safe, and you've been coming off of miles of wooded, two-track, multi-use path that is extremely safe. And when you come out to Route 6, and I ride my bike on Route 6, and it's harrowing, and a bike lane it makes it a little safer, and everybody knows that when you get on that bike on Route 6, there's people turning left into those curb cuts, and when you have an increase in recreational bicycle traffic going through those curb cuts, let's say it's only 10% of the people that continue down to get an ice cream at PJ's or want to get to Main Street, okay? Let's say it's only 10% of those people. That may be, an increase of 100 bicyclists, on a given day.
over a 12-hour period according to this.
Sure.
And
but
this
that's
this
increased-
number's from July 2nd.
Well,
so
the
that's-
numbers have just gone up
Yeah.
in
No, I
bike
agree.
trail use, so.
So my point is, I hear what everybody in the audience is saying, I hear what Mike is saying,
Okay,
I
I
hear
just
what
want
Helen's saying.
to finish real quick.
But I just want to say, the idea is to work on it, not
Sure.
to stop it, and they're supposed to come back in October.
So the letter only asks that they suspend it at Old Kings Highway.
Yeah.
That is not the whole extension. That is a very small amount of the extension that wouldn't get finished.
I know.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't finish it. We're just asking in this letter to suspend the word is to suspend. Let me just read it right
Yeah,
here.
where are you? We request,
Suspend
Therefore,
any
we
further
formally request-
construction
yeah.
and planning of the bike trail extension beyond Old Kings Highway, also referred to as Old County Road at that site due to public safety concerns. Okay? Basically, we're asking to be part of a comprehensive plan so that we've flushed out all the options and we're not terminating a recreational bike trail onto one of the most dangerous sections of Route 6 in town. I mean, it's not a matter of the DOT project. This has nothing to do with DOT. DOT may have bike
Okay,
lanes on
we
the
know,
highway,
yeah.
but this is about DCR, and DCR has not been responsive. DOT has.
Yeah. They told me they're coming back in October, so that's what I know. So I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying, that to me is being responsive, and that we will then discuss it. So, Kathleen or Justina, who had their hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's common sense to look at what they come back with in October. We've had an organized and passionate group of people concerned about the problems, and I think we can make sure we've been heard. But I mean, I'm of two minds about this, but I did talk to Sarah Peak, our rep from Providence, who has to deal with, you know, realities as an elected official, and she said this money may not come again to do a bike trail, and I think that comparing the bike trail to options that aren't doable right now is kind of not relevant. So I'd like to see what they come back with and see if our safety concerns are answered or not. There's a lot of ways with signage, with lights, with pylons maybe to block the access of that parking lot to the, you know, maybe we ask them to block it off with the signposts that, I think it's pylon is the word, that indicate that you shouldn't go out. But I think that we want to hear what they come back to, because they're offering us money to do it. And there are good things about the project, and we don't want to, you know, we want to keep the process going.
Okay, so I think we're ready to vote,
I'd like to add something, thank you.
if it's new.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to confirm something. And I may be wrong, you just said that the DCR and the DOT are coming back in October. We already, the reason I'm trying to clarify this now is that both agencies are required to have the kind of formal hearing meeting with us in the town,
Yeah.
the same way they did with the roundabout.
Well, the same way they did, I think it was last October, and
Yes.
another one in June.
Yes.
Yeah. That wasn't a public hearing. The June wasn't a public hearing.
Yeah, June wasn't, but here's my point.
Yeah.
Are you absolutely sure, and I'm looking at the town administrator, if I could bother him for a minute, do you know if it's both agencies that are coming back in October or just the DOT?
Janet has talked to the DCR, I've talked to the DOT. The DOT will
So-
be here
Yeah.
tomorrow.
I
Okay,
mean, they
so
said end
And
of
again-
September or October, so I will check with them.
that would be good, because
But,
that's,
you know, they said that, and, you know, not much we're not taking comments or
so
questions
one
from the
more new
audience.
thing. So this is a very good letter, and I think that it's a reasonable request for more dialogue and more effective participation in the planning. And if you don't want to have the select board send it to the governor, why don't we send it to the DOT and the DCR?
So,
And I think that would be a reasonable thing to do, given that
Yeah.
we have this very potent petition with a good cover letter. But I do feel that this board should make some effort to, as a group, contact these agencies, contact the state. We could copy the governor, and state formally where we are with this, because we as a board have not done that. And all this letter does is say, hit the pause button, let's talk some more, let's not spend any more taxpayer money until we all get on the same page.
okay. I hear you. No.
Thank you.
We, yeah, so,
I
I don't even know if
like to
that
add
needs to
one
be, no, I mean, no.
why?
I would like to hear
I
from
mean,
you.
I have
Because
things to say.
so we have talked about this, and I'm sorry that you weren't at that meeting.
Sure, I just have something new to say. I mean,
Okay,
it doesn't matter
okay.
if I wasn't here at the last
So
meeting.
Helen just said
We're talking
that
about
she
now.
wants the select board to make contact with the DOT and the DCR and have them come back, and that's what I've been saying. You said something to that effect, that we'll be in touch with them, that they are coming back. So that's where I'm at now. They are coming back, and I don't feel we need to send a letter to the governor. But what are you going to say?
Well, just that the bottom of this letter, what it asks for is for the town to have an effective role in planning this project so that we can protect the safety and convenience of our citizens and visitors. So the thing is that they're moving forward. They may be coming back, but they're moving forward with the same plan to terminate at Route
So,
6. This
yeah.
is about asking them to stop there, suspend it, and work with the town and the DOT to come up with a comprehensive plan. And when I spoke to our Senator Sear, he was in full agreement that the DCR and the DOT have not given us a comprehensive plan. There's bridges being built in other towns. There's massive infrastructure. This doesn't have to be over. This isn't saying
Not gonna
end
be
it.
over.
No, I mean, this letter does not say end it. It doesn't say end anything. So sending this letter is basically, what we would like to do is have the DCR actually come to the town, and we would like to have some intervention, actually.
So I've said that a number of times. They are, so what I will do
Scheduled
is
for this month.
tomorrow, I'll find out. But if they don't come back, if they say we're never going to come back and have another public hearing and we're just going to do whatever we want to do, then I'm more than happy to send a letter. But they are coming back, and there will be more discussions about safety and what they can do. So you guys have information I don't have. It might behoove the Bike and Walkway Committee to give me the information that you have. So I don't know what to say. But anyhow. Yeah, no. Okay. So can I have a motion or to move this along?
I
About whether we
don't
want-
have a motion in front
No,
of me,
there
Janet.
isn't one.
I have a
All-
motion.
all
I have
those-
a motion.
Excuse me, Michael?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Excuse me for the audience, please.
But
I'm going to make a motion. We're not asking for your comments.
Is there information that we don't
What-
have?
it's, so I'm sorry, Rebecca, we're not taking comments. You should have given them to me a week ago or whenever you got them. I don't know. It's too late. We're supposed to have all the information. That's because nothing's happening right now. There have been public meetings. Nothing's being built. Okay, no comments. We know your comments. We've gotten letters from you. We're well aware of it.
Oh, one more
So,
new thing.
no.
One more
Close
new
it.
thing.
No. Kathleen's making a motion.
Kathleen, would you mind waiting a minute so I add one more
No,
piece of
the
information?
chair does not recognize your more information. We've discussed
This is
this.
the only place, Madam Chair, that this board can talk about this. So I have one more point of information. Tomorrow, the DOT is going to have a meeting with the abutters. And
Right.
tomorrow morning, it's just for abutters. It's a little bit like the last one, except less open. And I am concerned that not all the abutters were contacted about it. I think the word is spread, and that was the only new thing I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you.
So the rest of us know about this. It's at 10 o'clock downstairs in Town Hall. I'm going to go, but I'm not going to participate.
I specifically asked in my update to not invite people because this is a private meeting, which I've opened so that people can attend and observe if they want. So it is only limited to the abutters that were invited at the request of the Department of Transportation.
Private meeting.
So that they can hear from the abutters. So, well, if you
DOT.
abut the bike path and the proposed, if your property is on the bike path, and if your property is on the piece of property that they,
Yeah.
Can I correct what
on
you're
that,
saying?
yeah.
Who they asked to be abutted was the business owners
Oh,
on the
that's right.
east
This
side
is,
of the
this is
road.
the DOT. This
For
is, yeah,
how
that's right.
the repavement and the redesign of
you're
Route
right.
6 would affect them.
So what I said was wrong. This is the DOT and the refinishing of the highway and changing that.
Can you guys tone it down a little? Kathy and Jenny, you guys are super loud.
Oh, we're right in the microphone. Okay, well, you have good ears. I'm used to teaching seniors, and I have to talk this way all the time.
Okay, Madam
So good.
Chair.
Real seniors, like seriously. So
Also, so people at home can.
I'm a senior. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
have-
Thank you for telling me.
For the audience that's viewing this on the tape, and for members of the audience in front of us tonight, dear Governor Baker, as members of the Selectboard in Wellfleet, we strive to represent the people we serve. We are writing to bring your attention to an ongoing, serious public safety concern related to where the Department of Conservation and Recreation has planned to create a new terminus in Wellfleet for a section of the proposed Cape Cod Rail Trail bike path. Is this a good tone for you? Our town is very supportive of having a bike path eventually extend all the way to Provincetown, and appreciates all the hard work and planning that has gone into the project. However, we do not support the current DCR plan to have the bike path terminate on Route 6 near one of the busiest, most congested intersections on that part of the highway. Residents and many other people who pass along the stretch of Route 6 have repeatedly voiced their safety concerns at public meetings hosted by the DCR and in smaller gatherings with the DCR and DOT staff, but they feel that their reasonable considerations have been ignored. That is why we are reaching out to you. On April 23rd, 2019, at our annual town meeting, the citizens of Wellfleet voted almost unanimously in favor of Article 44. I want to imply here that Article 44 was a petitioned article. Petitioned articles are non-binding. I'm just adding that in. Which requested that the Board of Selectmen and Conservation Commission and the Planning Board consider alternate routes for the bike trail extension, and to ask the appropriate agencies to halt any planning or construction of the bike trail extension beyond Old County Road until those deliberations have occurred. Therefore, we formally request that at this time, the DCR suspend any further construction and planning of the bike trail extension beyond Old Kings Highway, also referred to as Old County Road, at that site, due to public safety concerns, before any more taxpayer money is spent on this, and that the DCR works with the town to pursue alternative routes for the path and sites for a bike path terminus in Wellfleet. We hope that you can help give the town an effective role in planning this project so we can protect the safety and convenience of our citizens, our visitors, and Outer Cape residents who use this section of Route 6 on a frequent basis. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, the Wellfleet Select Board. Okay, so the motion is all.
I have a question about the letter. If we ask them to halt planning, how are they going to work on planning for our concerns? I think that needs to be tweaked.
We didn't use the word halt, we used suspend.
Suspend,
But
yeah.
they have to work on it, they have to be planning. So we're asking them to suspend
Madam Chair,
working
No.
on it.
suspend
So
beyond
there's-
Old County Road.
There's a motion.
I'm going to
Yeah.
make the motion.
Yep.
All those in favor of sending this letter to Governor Baker, please signify by saying
Aye.
Aye. 2 opposed? Okay.
I have another motion. All those in favor of sending this letter to the two agencies involved, this letter, as was just read, thank you, Kathleen, to the two agencies involved. They're aware of our, feelings, but as
Make a motion, you said yes, second motion.
I move that we send this letter to the two agencies involved, the DCR and the DOT.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? So I will reiterate, you guys accused me or other people of not listening to you. We are going to be discussing it. They're coming, you'll be invited, you'll be part of the process, so it's just a letter, so. I can't hear you, Rebecca, I can't hear you, you can't talk. Okay,
Madam Chair?
yes.
For the record, and not tonight, I would support sending a revised letter, which I'm happy to draft, that does articulate the concerns of our residents and on the petition. I think there are ways this needs to be stated that supports a positive process towards the resolution and doesn't cut it off. This comes across to me as cutting off working towards a solution. I'm not against sending a letter. I'm not in favor of sending this letter.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll call the DCR tomorrow. Okay?
Thank you, Janet.
Yes, thank both of you guys. Excuse, you have to come to the microphone. I didn't hear what you said, but you have to go to the microphone and we've cut things off.
I said we are not able to control a shark problem right now, unfortunately. We are able to control a potential bike problem with children on Route 6.
So, really think about it, Okay.
If you want to make it safer, you use this plan and you go by what statistics say. This will be up to.
Okay, so what, this,
Safety over the existing, which is nothing.
so thank you. So hold it. So you're kind of new to meetings, but you have to speak at the microphone. You have to ask to be recognized. And because people who are watching TV need to hear, need to be aware of it. But I kind of heard what you said, so thank you. And I kind of heard what you said, so thank you. You're also supposed to state your name all the time. Okay, so I think you guys, we know, you gotta really, you think I want children being dumped out onto Route 6 as you guys have said? Who dumps children out onto Route 6? Give us, okay, give us, whatever.
Janet, if
Yeah,
you want
okay,
to
nope,
stop
that's it.
conversation.
Okay. All right, moving on to decide the possible fate of the Shellfish Shack.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So can we wait a minute while people, may I request that people don't talk in the hall so that we can hear each other, please?
What were you going to say? Just tell me to go on?
Can we wait a minute?
Shut the fuck up, yeah. I got it. Just from your motion, yeah. There's no happiness. Well, thank you guys, too. And we'll work it, It's as if they didn't get disease chitta, as you say in yoga.
That was Kathleen did a very
Send the letter.
Okay, so who's up for Shellfish Shack?
Yeah, so a couple things. We got a letter from the Historical Commission saying, please, let's save this. And I had an idea. You've heard me say at other meetings, given what we know, and we really do know it now, that whole area is going to be underwater pretty soon. And if not with major storm events, then presently the whole thing is going to be, there's going to be more water.
Pretty soon is 20-plus years. On storms
hold on a
it'll
minute.
cross, but yeah.
I don't think,
All right,
I
that's what
think
just
that
heard.
we should accept what's going on and not put, the town shouldn't put one more penny into anything, seriously, that's at that level, that close to sea level. However, we got this great letter from the Historical Commission. And I would think that if they want to organize and fundraise and get a grant and think of something useful to do with that building, go for it. I just don't think the town should have this in their budget at all. I mean, we just spent some money to, put wood over the doors and do some basic, so it wouldn't completely rot, maintenance. But I don't think we should be spending money on it, and at all. And I certainly don't think we should spend $40,000 to make it.
Where'd you get $40,000
That
from?
was the
Estimate
figure
from
that we
Justin.
got
From last year,
from
not from
Justin
the
Post. In
Historical
other words, to
Society or
make it somewhat usable from maybe the Shellfish Department. I really think that if the Historical Commission can come up, or any group like Friends of the Shellfish Shack can come up with a bunch of money and give us a good thing to do with it and staff it, if it needs staffing, go for it.
Good. Mike?
I guess first I'd like to say that doing nothing is going to eventually cost us some money too, because we're going to have to tear it down if we don't do anything. I'd like to find out what it would cost to kind of gut the building down to the frame and convert it into a sort of changing facility for people who use the Mayo Beach as it was intended. I think it used to be a
Bathing,
A bathing
bathhouse,
house,
yeah.
a bathhouse with maybe some like outdoor showers to like rinse your feet off and some lockers and some benches. And I don't think that would be highly costly. And I'm not opposed to, fundraising for that, but I think it would be worthwhile for the town to look into that.
So a short history is, I've been on the select board for 4 years, and before that, the planning board, and this gets discussed every year, it gets voted on every year. And I'll say 3 years ago, we voted to tear it down. 4 years ago, we voted to tear it down. 3 years ago, we said, no, let's keep it.
Dennis Murphy?
Yeah, we went back and forth. The Shellfish Constable does use it. The Shellfish Department does use it. We have had legal advice that once it's gone, it's gone. You can't build there again if you tear it down. You can't build on the
Floodplain.
And there's a lot of ideas. So we keep kind of waiting for a marina, a harbor plan, which would encompass all of that. But I mean, I think, if it's gone, I would like to see it stay, and I always have, because there are some possible uses, like even just a pavilion, a shaded pavilion that the waves can wash over. And you could put, it would be a great place for someone who doesn't go to the beach, but their family does. It would be shade. Other people have liked that idea. We've talked about having some interpretive signs in there, or even like a picnic table in the shade. So there's a lot of possibilities. Kathleen?
Yeah, this has been with me since I was elected 3 years ago, the Shellfish Shack. And as our chairman has spoken, we've voted on this several times. It came up at town meeting
Yeah, but I
last
forgot that,
April,
yeah.
and I don't think anybody put it more succinctly than Harry Turkanian, who's on the Building Needs Assessment Committee. It's in really bad shape. It's barely pinned to the slab foundation that it's on, and it is in the floodplain. So we're really, our hands are tied with regard to meeting FEMA code on this building. Having said that, it's been very disturbing reading some of the comments on Facebook about what should be done with the former Shellfish Shack. I'd like to make it known that there's no water or electricity to the building to be an artsy cafe where one can go have coffee in the morning. That's not going to happen down there. The other thing that I'm concerned about is, while I see the passion of the Historical Commission to save the building, and could do fundraising efforts and even volunteer labor, again, this puts a liability on the town of Wellfleet. We will be liable when something wrong goes there, and something wrong is going to happen there when seawater rises. And we've had 2 splashovers on the pier in the past several winters. I've lived here all my life. I've never seen water that high. I don't think it's 10 or 20 years out. I think it comes a lot sooner. And if any of you were to go inside the building, you'd be immediately asphyxiated by the amount of black mold that's so toxic in that building right now. To remediate that, we've had a price on that. To replace the windows and the roof, we had a price on that. The lowest we could come in was about $40,000. And again, there's still no water or electricity to the building. Originally, when this came to me as a select board member, my fellow board member, Helen Wilson, said, you know what, guys, the way Helen does, it should just be open space.
Yes.
Open space. And nature's going to make it that way, one way or the other. So, again, I don't know how many Hail Marys we can give this building. I really don't, Janet.
I know. I don't know where to go either with it. We voted, every year we vote on it. Justina?
Well, I think it could actually be really practical to do a low-cost, things to the building, so the Shellfish department, who would like to use it, can use it. We're looking at that number of 40,000, but I know last year we approved 30,000 just to replace the floor in the town hall basement. So I think that when we look at town building standards, they're often done to a level of perfection that I know I probably wouldn't be able to do in my house. I think 40,000 is a pretty low ball number to get a usable structure. And I know as a homeowner, the kind of rule of thumb is don't get rid of your footprint, because you don't get it back again, right? If you have a non-conforming structure. And if we don't it's my understanding, if we don't renovate more than 50% of the building, then we don't have to
Go to code.
go to code. And so that's a valuable use of the footprint. It gets us out of those expensive code things, and then we get up and running for 40,000, and Nancy Savetta's department can use it. And I think if it floods, then, well, we're just, as a town, we're going to have to cross flooding when it happens. So I just see it as a structure that the Shellfish department that's very active can use for the cost of a little bit more than putting new linoleum down on the town floor basement. So I think these numbers that we throw around of budgets have to be put in perspective of what we spend all over town on town buildings. And I love Harry Turkanian, but I did happen to disagree with him on that particular item.
So I have the perfect solution. Form a committee.
No.
Yeah, we need to have input. I mean, I know that town meeting voted to tear it down, right? So I still like it, call me sentimental.
Janet?
But I think that there could be use for it. So we either decide again tonight to vote yay, nay, or form a committee, get some
Janet?
ideas. Yeah.
No, there is another alternative. Not everybody on this board has seen the intense, very good documentation that the Building Needs Committee gave. You saw it.
Yeah.
And you saw, Kathleen, you saw some of it. But none of us got it for tonight's conversation. And particularly with Mike and Justina, you didn't get the full barrage of it, which is part of the reason I'm saying what I say. That's the first thing. The second thing is the house across the driveway from me, in much better shape, but with a lot of mold in it, was treated for mold this summer by the same business that gave the estimate for treating the Shellfish Shack for mold. The way they treat it is really toxic.
Yes.
And I would be surprised if the Shellfish department, once they looked at what they use on that, would want to have anything to do with that building. That's number one. The second thing is, when the Shellfish department staff was using it, the mold issue came up, and that can be contractually something that's a real issue. In other words, you're exposing people to something which is quite toxic, and I don't want any employees in that building. And it isn't like you do it once. You have to keep doing it. So that's two things that haven't been brought up. I would like us all to have complete access to, before we vote on this, all the material that we have gotten in the past so that everybody's on the same page, even though some of us are,
Madam
before
Chair?
we make a decision.
So I just want to ask Lydia, Ms. Vivanti, if the Historical Society had any ideas, since they're the ones that brought this before us tonight.
Madam Chair, quickly,
Historical
not all black
Commission.
mold is toxic. In fact, it's often white mold that is.
So let's not get into those details, because we could, as I said, do a pavilion, which would get rid of all the mold. There's other things, like do we want to keep a building, an edifice, a structure in that space? That's really the question, not what we want to do with it. We all know whatever stays there has to be remediated. Yes.
Thank you, Janet. Also, it's the Historical Commission, not Historical Society, that wrote the
Oh,
letter.
okay, sorry, yep, thank you.
Okay. I really like Michael's idea of making it a practical space, a space much like, say, the swap shop, which is really just one big room with down to the rafters. It's a seasonal place that could be used for recreational purposes, as was the original intent of the donor of Mayo Beach land. And the mold issue, you can see that probably a lot of the drywall in the building has gotten wet over the years. That would all be removed. There's no carpeting there. There's wooden floors, I imagine. So if you kind of got the interior, you have a usable building with a pretty good roof on an amazing piece of land. I think my personal concern is if it were to be demolished, that it could just turn into more parking, which just seems
We
to
need
be.
more parking.
I
Good
know,
idea.
but, yeah.
Yeah.
Janet?
So I agree. So we can just vote once again whether we want to keep it or demolish it, even though town meeting, here we go again, that was a vote, wanted to demolish it. Yes.
Could I add one more?
We can always change our minds.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Just Pam Grandin is here in the audience, who's prepared a community preservation application, so I wanted to mention that as well as something to bring.
About the Shellfish Shack?
Yes.
Well, Kathleen can say something, and then you can come up to the microphone.
With your permission, I'd like to ask a question of Trudy, who's in the audience. You were in a building for a winter that flooded twice. Would you buy it? Thank you. You made my point.
Yes, go to the mic, or you can come up here if you have a presentation of something. Yeah.
No, that's okay. My name is Pam Grand, and I actually spoke at the Jude meeting, saying that there was a group of community members who wanted to see the shack saved. And then the Historical Commission sent the letter saying that they would support any group that wanted to save it. So a lot of the ideas that have come up there, or that you guys have expressed tonight, have come up in the group. I have filled out an application for community preservation to get funds. We're not looking to the town for any money for this. And I have to say it's very disheartening because I live across the street from the shack. I look at it every day. You would think I would be one of the people who wanted it gone, and I don't. I want it to be there. And if it floods, my house floods.
Yeah.
Because I'm below it. I was here during the last flood when the harbor came over with the winds out of the east, the super moon, the high tide, everything that just came together. We were still not even close to being flooded. And we're much lower than the shack. So I'm sure it's coming. I'm not as doom and gloom. I look at it's here. How can we repurpose it? How can we preserve it? And how can we reuse it? So I ask that the board hold off on that. And if I also note, the town vote was not to demolish the building. The town vote was to raise residents or taxpayers' taxes to pay the $42,000 to renovate it. It was not to demolish.
Oh, I haven't looked up. Really?
Yeah,
Really?
we voted not to make improvements on the building, but not to demolish it. But in previous select board votes, going back to 2017, we as a select board voted to demolish the building.
Right, I have that whole timeline. I'm addressing the town
As
vote this
a,
year, and it was not to
a
demolish.
conciliatory going away gift to our chairman and select board member Dennis Murphy, we put it back on the table again. And here it's been for another 3 years.
And now you have a group that stepped up and wants to do something with it.
Janet, I
Okay.
have a question for her.
All right.
Yeah, I have a question for you. So I'm the person who's been on this board the longest, which is surprising to me, but it's true at this point. So you're not talking.
You're also the oldest.
I know. And you're paying for my Social Security. I love it. Anyway, here's the point. I'm very aware, which is the reason I just mentioned that, of what it costs to staff and to clean and to maintain town buildings. And I'm also very aware of what we already have. We have a wonderful historical society, which is a private organization which the town doesn't have to pay anything for, although they occasionally apply for CPC grants, that covers, that kind of archiving and kind of museum-like quality. And they staff it, and we don't have to pay for that, except for some CPC. And I just don't want money spent on something for sentimental reasons. I like the way that old building looks. I grew up here. That shape is what I think a house should look like. But I think it's a bad thing to spend our money on. I don't think there's any real burning issue for something to use it for that we can't use other spaces for. And I'm very aware of the Shellfish rationale, the Shellfish, department's rationale about it. And I don't want us to have to be maintaining it into the future. I'm going to repeat what Kathleen said that I've said a million times. I would love that to be open space, and I would be surprised if we could put parking on it. I think the Conservation Commission would stand up on their back legs and scream and say, you can't do that.
It would just mean more beach. But
Yeah.
personally, I don't want the liability for the town. The building is a liability. It's been sitting as that for as long as I can remember now. And, it's, a group takes it on, that's still liability issues.
So it all depends upon what you come up with and what the uses are.
And that's all I'm asking,
Yeah.
is just to
I
stay
mean, I'm
for
all
us
for
to
looking
put
at
a plan forward.
other uses or possible uses that certainly are economically feasible, if not downright free for the town. But, I don't even know if we need a motion at this point.
No.
Unless the rest of the committee
Well,
wants something,
that's what I
but
was
I
gonna
wouldn't
ask.
mind if you're volunteering to look into it. Yeah, so if anybody else wants to speak to the issue. But I'm all for keeping it, and I would love to see what your plans
Madam
would be.
Chair, the
Mhm.
next time we discuss this, may we please have the full
Yeah.
documentation
So you don't have,
Building Needs Committee.
In the effort of saving trees and the fact that I've given it to you a number of times, I did not put it in the agenda this time. So
I
I'm sure it's
appreciate
in your
that.
file.
But
So-
I mean, I want the packet that came before you even worked here. I
Okay.
want the full 9 yards, so we can all look at it and
you
understand.
didn't save that?
What?
You didn't save it in your file?
From 5 years ago?
Yeah.
It came on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
we have
save that in
paper
my
files
file.
too.
Because
So-
we
so I-
voted to
I know,
demolish
I
it.
hear what you're saying. So one of the things is that said is it was paying for the building. Oh, I don't want to mess up Mary Ellen here. She's starting to leave. I'm talking too loud. Paying for a building so that people can use the building. There could be a point, maybe where you tear down the building, have a whole new thing, and people can be in there. So what I'm saying is that there's a number of uses over the years that people have wanted it for. There's also a number of people who have wanted it demolished, but nothing's happened yet, so there's no motion, no?
I would like to make a motion.
We have one more audience member who wants to say something.
I'm Trudy Vermeeren. I wanted to clarify my quick answer first to Kathleen Bacon. Yes, I was an occupant in a building that flooded twice. However, I didn't own that building, and we're talking about a town-owned property. One of the things I understand, and I may be incorrect, but that property was sold to the town a number of years ago with the express purpose that it remained solely for a bathing facility. Changing facility is what I understand. This was Facebook, I get it, could be anything, could be wrong, but that was said that it was in the deed, that was an express purpose for that building. When I was on the Conservation Commission, this is just a couple side points. It was voted to not tear it down for environmental reasons. They wanted to explore a little further into what was in that building. Was there lead paint? Was it going to be more
Asbestos.
environmental
Yeah.
problems that were going to be a larger hazard than containing it, possibly renovating it? They didn't get into the details, but they did vote against tearing it down. I don't know that would be the same given different members on the board, but I just wanted to make those couple of points.
Justin has been through the building, and there are no hazardous materials in the building. And to your first point, we have been vetted with KP Law that the deed easements restricting it to bathing and what have you are no longer valid. They have run their time. So when we voted to tear down the building, all of that information, we looked at all of that information and said, there's no reason to keep it.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Thank you for
Two more
clarifying.
facts, Madam Chair. So the property, which included what's now the old Shellfish Shack, was bought by the town for $6,000 in 1931. $1,000 was paid by the town. $5,000 was contributed by an anonymous donor. So that whole beach,
It wasn't you, Helen?
I was not born yet. Yeah, and I didn't have the money. So anyway, here's the point. Here, yeah, really funny. Yeah, so here's the point. The deed restriction says, and I happen to have read it this morning, don't ask why, I was cleaning up papers. But the deed restriction says, and I've got the deed, that whole property, and it doesn't mention the Shellfish Shack specifically, has to be used for only recreational purposes, such as it includes bathing. I used to use it for, changing my bathing suit when I was a little girl, and that's all the facts I wanted to supply, but that's a little more than, has been shared with the public about it. So it's since 1931.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up with the Select Board. Would you like to say something? And just state your name, please.
Sam Blakesley, I'm a full-time resident. I'm a shellfisherman. My grant is directly out from the parking lot on Mayo Beach, adjacent to the puffer grant. The last time I was in the Shellfish Shack was roughly 5 years ago, and that was in the process of working with some of the people there. But when I hear people talk about, oh, we can strip it down to the floor, to the frame, 5 years ago, that floor is soft. That floor is falling in. That frame is no good. That
Right.
roof is no
No,
good.
the whole thing, yeah.
That whole slab is no good. So when people talk about, oh, we can take it back to the bare bones, there's no bare bones. That skeleton is crumbling.
Right.
And, I think that the Shellfish Department in a lot of ways gets treated like the redhead stepchild of the departments around here, and they don't get a whole lot of respect or resources that they need to be effective, and they really should have their own space to operate effectively, but that building is not it. It never will be it. And unless you're going to take everything down, put in a whole new slab and put in a whole new building to be washed away in 10 years or whenever, unless you're going to invest in a hurricane-proof, flood-proof building that is definitely going to go against the character of the town and completely eradicate the argument for preserving that building, there's nothing to be done except to get rid of the building and open up that space. That building is crumbling, and it's going to crumble apart, whether through a storm, whether through a fire, whether through vandalism, whether through any number of things.
Yeah.
And I love that building being the Shellfish Shack because the access road to the beach is right there. It has great utility when I find somebody else's stuff that's on my grant, I can drop it off there. Everybody's driving through there that's at least on our side of the channel, and you can say, oh, it's behind the Shellfish Shack. That's wonderful and convenient, and it would be great to have that continue to have that utility. But the amount of cost involved, I don't think is worth it, unfortunately. So I would be, just personally, I would be in favor of opening up that space. Thank you.
Thank you. So to move on, you see that everybody has a different idea of what to do with it. So if anybody has some great ideas that they feel strongly about, write a letter, start a committee, come back with a proposal, like this lady's doing for the Historical Society, and what can be done, can't be done.
Just
all right.
I just wanted to say that there has been a estimate on renovating the building. So
Yeah, we talked about that.
it's
yeah.
$40,000 or something
Yeah.
like that. So if they did that estimate, I seriously doubt it's crumbling to the point where the skeleton's rotten. That's
Yeah.
my assessment.
So wait, okay, shutting it off. We all hear this. If you really want to have a work meeting on the Shellfish Committee, on the Shellfish Shack, but I think that start a committee.
Janet. Respectfully, Madam Chair, this is the committee to decide about it. It's
Not if they
unfortunate.
come up with something, with a plan. We've never had a really good proposal for what it would be used as. I know that the Shellfish Constable wants to keep it and use it. They are using it. Shellfish is using it. So it is in use.
Vaguely.
But people, well, vaguely, whatever, it's in use. So I don't feel strongly either way. I know that it's not a really great building, but whatever. So if money is found, money's found. If we want to, or we can tear it down, you know, come with a motion or come with a plan. But again, these are all things that I've discussed for 4 years now, and we're just going back and forth. So I want to move on. Anybody else want to move on?
Same.
Yep.
Anybody else want to move on?
Yep.
Good. Okay, moving on. But thank you, but keep going and see what happens. Oh, good. Helen, you're up. You wanted to discuss the Blash superseding order of condition?
Actually, what I wanted was to have us have an update from the CONSCOM or the health conservation agent about this, because there have been, you know, there's a new development. And this is, let's be clear, we all understand, I think, that this is very much the Conservation Commission's business. In other words,
Right.
they're
We
the
know-
ones
we
that
got
make
it.
the decisions. No, I'm just looking at the former chair because she's sitting in front of me. But anything to do with that property is something that's of great public concern, and therefore it's part of our business.
Right.
And an update, I can't give you more than, you know, a very brief update about it, which is that the DEP issued a superseding order of conditions, which overruled the Conservation Commission's very careful, well-presented, well-documented material to support their decision not to allow an armoring, a rigid armoring revetment at that point on the coast. And there was apparently some exchange with town council about this, about not appealing it or appealing it. I don't feel that I can talk about it in an open meeting. It's executive session material, so I'm going to stop there. But this board, because we are the people who vote to have the financial support for committees and boards when they make decisions, we need to be kept abreast of it and not just have it plumped on the table. A good example that some of us have experienced is what we went through with Cumberland Farms, which was also a Conservation Commission issue. And,
Okay.
yeah.
So, Mr. Hort, can you clarify anything?
Can you help, please?
If I can just give you an update, there are two issues that the Conservation Commission made, I guess, rulings on. One is dealing with what they administer, which is the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Regulations. The other is the Wellfleet Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Our bylaw is much more stringent than our regulations. What the DEP ruled against was our interpretation of the environmental protection regulations. We still have a case that is
Based on the bylaw.
is in the courts based on our more stringent bylaw. So without saying anything more about how that case is going in public, it wasn't surprising to most people that the DEP ruled against the Environmental Protection Act ruling by our Conservation Commission. Our attorneys advised us against appeal because we didn't really have a basis for appeal. We'd just be wasting our money. What we're counting on is that the more stringent bylaw will be upheld by the courts, and that is an ongoing process.
Thank you.
Mike?
To add one more piece of information, and on number 16 at the end of that superseding order,
Yeah.
it says, "This superseding order of conditions does not relieve the applicant of the need to obtain approval of this project under and comply with the requirements of the Wellfleet Wetlands Protection Bylaw." So it's written in the superseding order. That's all.
Yeah, and thank you for posting that on Facebook. I hope it helped people. Okay, so there's really nothing, this was just to inform the public of what, and update the public on what we know. The new Select Board policy on local access television, if Ms. Baumgarten wants to come up.
And while she's coming up, may I ask the town administrator, so this is this is the first step in our policy thing?
No, we've already gone through the first step, so this is whether you want to adopt this policy or not.
Okay, yeah, thank you, because, I'm not early onset yet, but I don't remember everything.
I can tell.
So good evening, and thank you for having me back to talk about my policy. The intent of the policy is to mandate the recording of Wellfleet's regulatory boards, and I'd like to briefly outline the reasons why I believe this policy is necessary, with your permission, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Since I started working as Wellfleet's Media Operations Manager last winter, I have gone to all boards and committees who are willing to meet with me and discuss the reason for and the process of recording. There are some who remain uncomfortable with the idea, and those who have opposed it have presented to me 3 basic arguments. The first one is that nobody cares enough to watch. As you can see from the report I submitted that's in your packet, your own board recordings average roughly 2,450 views. The 2 nights of town meeting last spring averaged over 2,500. The community forums average over 1,000. The Shellfish Advisory Board averages close to 2,000. We now record 11 distinct boards and committees, in addition to some other meetings of community importance. And since January 1st, our total media views are at 99,298. And for the record, views doesn't mean somebody watched everything the whole way through. This is someone referencing it. This is how many times it was accessed. Those are the numbers for the town's video-on-demand streaming service. I don't have a way to collect data for the people who view it on traditional TV, but there are certainly more viewers there. For reference, Wellfleet's year-round population is about 2,700 people, so let's assume that people are watching. The second argument is that it will change the board's process. I also film meetings in Orleans. Between Wellfleet and Orleans, I have been regularly recording over 20 boards for about 3 years, and in that time, not once has anybody come up and said, "This is bad for our process." I'm happy to concede that it has some effect. People have said that it makes them more careful about what they say, more deliberate with their time, and more focused in what they are trying to achieve in their meetings. But not once has anybody said that it was bad. So let's assume that if there is change, it's for the better. The third argument is that it's unnecessary because meetings are already open to the public. Though the meetings are open to the public, the regulatory boards all meet in the afternoon or the evening when the majority of Wellfleet's working residents cannot regularly attend. Wellfleet's major industries, marine commerce and tourism, are based on tidal schedules and evening shifts in food service and in retail. Most service jobs are not full-time and do not provide vacation hours. Even if a working person can afford to miss a shift, which is unlikely in a place where housing costs are astronomical, childcare is prohibitively expensive. Senior citizens may be more flexible in schedule, but are often prevented from attending meetings in person by inability to walk or drive safely, especially in darkness or winter weather. Meeting minutes record decisions and votes, but cannot capture the nuances of a debate. In a recent survey of Wellfleet's full and part-time residents regarding Comcast usage, responders were asked to rate the importance of the town's public access programming. 50% of those surveyed rated the town's public access programming as a, quote, very important service. 20% rated it fairly important, 15% slightly important, and 10% not important. All 15 towns on the Cape have an active public access media program. The vast majority record and broadcast the regulatory boards. There are only 3 towns without posted policies or mandates addressing their public television guidelines: Yarmouth, Mashpee, and Wellfleet. There are 4 towns not to record their Conservation Commission: Yarmouth, Sandwich, Bourne, and Wellfleet. There are 2 towns not to record their Board of Health: Sandwich and Wellfleet. There is one town that does not record its planning board, Wellfleet. Regulatory boards, by definition, make decisions which affect Wellfleet's land use, taxpayer revenue, public bylaws, long-term plans, or some combination thereof. If a citizen is not able to attend in person, the only substitute is watching an unedited recording. And in 2019, given the constraints of schedules, geography, and socioeconomics, not allowing access to information via TV or the internet is the prohibition of public access. So let's assume that making the information of these meetings freely and readily available is necessary. There's a lot of public interest in this issue, and if you do choose not to approve it tonight, I expect it probably will come back at town meeting as a citizen's petition, and we'll have the debate again. Tonight you have the opportunity to codify not only the recording of Wellfleet's regulatory boards, but the structure and use of Wellfleet's public access media for the future. Thank you very much, and I am now here for questions.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to go first?
I do.
Okay.
First of
Far
all,
left.
thank you. Second of all, your passion comes through, but I have some questions. I'm not surprised that you said that some people on committees were not comfortable, because I've been approached by a number of committee chairs saying they don't feel their feelings about running their committees count. And I don't see a survey of how the committees feel. I think that volunteers put in long hours, and it's not always easy to run a meeting. I was the chair of the Board of Water Commissioners. We had a great deal of work to do. And I think some people do find television cameras intimidating. They might not be so rude as to come up to you and tell you, how they feel about it. So, number one, I have a problem that I didn't receive any feedback in this proposal about how committee chairs and volunteers feel. Secondly, I do have a concern that I think I touched on last time. I have a background in cable television. The more cable television programming that went up, the more cable television channels expanded, down went the ratings. And I'm concerned, how many hours of programming a month are you planning to put up?
We have, I think it is 10 or 11 regulatory boards. Most likely, if I filmed all of them, I would not be able to film the ones that are not regulatory, like the recycling committee and the parking task force.
Right, because I began to count 30 hours of meetings up there, and one of the benefits right now, one of the reasons that the select board gets such high viewership, one of them is that there's not there's not as much programming up there, and I think it helps prioritize what's important for the viewer. I'd be more comfortable in the policy if it were not mandatory, but it were elective by the committees that have to deal with it, because although the ratings, 466 people as the top rating of the Finance Committee, that's pretty good, but it's about 3% of a universe if you look at second homeowners as well as year-round. And so I think we want to think a little bit about it and maybe roll it out and show respect for the volunteers who are doing all this work, and let them choose whether they would like it televised or not. That would be my recommendation, to change that word from mandatory to elective.
May I make 2 points? I'm sorry.
Okay, yes.
Just
go
quickly in response. So number one, the policy was sent out to all department heads and boards and committees back in June when I first submitted it. So they've certainly seen it, and they've had time. And I am sorry to hear that there hasn't been any feedback. I assume there was, but they have seen it. And the second one is, I don't think that the concern about competitive programming is really a big one, because again, I don't think people are watching all of these all the way through. I think that a lot of people are accessing one topic at a time across a board or committee, and so the number of hours is not as relevant perhaps as the number of things that are talked about, but I do think that having as much access as possible allows people to prioritize for themselves what they want to see.
Yeah, but doesn't it rotate? Like, how does it get presented?
Well, so for the record, the specific numbers I referred to were only for the streaming service. I don't have a way to collect the TV service. The TV service does rotate on the traditional broadcast, and I am able to do 1 to 2 repeats of every program that we have.
Right, because people talk to me about watching the Board of Selectmen, and they know that if they turn it on, they can get it. Now they'll turn it on and they'll get 30 hours of programming, and
The Select Board is broadcast 3 times a day. It's 7, 1, and 7 again, and I've put up signs all over town
Right.
to tell people that, because I want
But
them
I think
to know.
it's one reason why it gets high viewership. Again, I would be more comfortable making this an optional policy, at least in the first year.
Janet?
Kathleen had her hand up first.
Janet, through you, Madam Chair, to Mia. Thank you for all of this. You are so smart.
My mom thinks so. She's
I
here.
know, she did well with you, she really did. Question is, only one regulatory board is not being filmed right now?
No, there are several. There's the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission. I don't remember off the top of my head if Water and Sewer is a regulatory board.
No, it's not.
It's not. So I
Okay.
think that there are only 2 or 3.
Board-
Health.
I just want to
Sorry,
add,
Health.
and Board of Health.
I've heard from members of the Conservation Commission that they're changing their slant on this. Just to, you know, I can't get to all these meetings, and I go to a lot of meetings during the week. And if I can, you know, access a planning board meeting, or, you know, a conservation meeting, this way, it's been a really good tool for me. So, you know, I'm for it. The second thing I want to say is, it makes, these are regulatory boards. They are serving the town of Wellfleet. They're serving the residents of Wellfleet. And there needs to be transparency and, you know, and public trust. And I think by filming them, that, you know, we're going to try and deliver on those 2 things. The third thing is, you know, when I signed up to be a selectman, I didn't see any of this coming. I had no idea it was going to be on TV 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and you go to the post office and you go to the dump, and people are like, I just saw you on TV, and you kind of drop and say, what soap opera was that? And, yeah, but, yeah, I'm for this.
May I ask if you've gotten used to it, the being filmed? Yes and no? A little bit. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Helen?
Yes, so a little history. The first time this Select Board was regularly on TV, but not on the town website, was the summer of 2003, okay? I had just gotten on the board, and Ira Wood jump-started it. We all volunteer for our jobs, whether we're paid or not, and technically, legally, everybody on boards and committees, including us, are special municipal employees according to the state. And we actually have to swear an oath and stuff like that. Some of us are paid a bit, but most of us aren't. I feel that, do I like the idea of looking at myself on TV? No, I got over that a long time ago because the accountability is fabulous. And I think that it's the best record we have of what we do, and one gets used to it very quickly. I feel that most people I speak with don't watch it on TV. I, for example, don't have a TV. You just go to the town website, you go to Video on Demand, and Mia, thank you so much for, if there's a meeting, you can actually go to a special section of the meeting.
Yeah.
And when I'm reading through the minutes and trying to check out if I feel there should be an amendment or not, and usually there isn't, it's right there. And it's also made me slowly and not reliably a better speaker and a better participant. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard back from, which is really valuable.
It's a really good tool.
I also, I think there, So do you video the water commissioners?
I do not.
Okay, so there are 4 regulatory boards. They make their own
It is a regulatory
regulations.
board.
They're called regulatory boards. There's no sewer in there. So Water Commissioners, Board of Health, Planning Board, and
Conservation.
Conscom. 4 regulatory boards are not being videoed here?
It was 5 until a couple months ago when the ZBA changed their
Okay.
minds. And they've actually told me that they really, I don't know if they like it, but it's been useful.
You get used to it. So I have one more thing to say about the policy, which I like very much. The only thing is, we have now approved a new version of the charter.
Okay.
And in the charter, all boards, committees, commissions are referred to as committees. Okay, so we don't need to do that in this policy, but if you're going to have additional boards, I would put committees and commissions. I would add committees in there, because one of the things about this policy is the select board, or is it also the town administrator, can say, you know, you guys need to be recorded. And I think that sometimes that's a very good thing. It's an accountability thing, and it steadies me. You know, I was desperately informal on the Shellfish Committee for years, and
They're still fairly informal.
Yes, they are, but not compared to this. This is pretty formal, and I think we should be, you know. So I like it, and I've gotten used to it, and I think it's the most valuable record we could possibly have of these meetings.
Thank you. Mike?
I just have one question, really. It says all public meetings of all town policymaking and regulatory boards. I'm wondering, you know, about executive session. If it's
Does
not
not apply
mentioned
to
in there,
executive
it does
session.
not
No.
apply, and it doesn't need to be stated in here that it does not apply, because I thought that executive session is still considered a public meeting. We have to have a public meeting. We have to have minutes. We don't release it right away. But I'm pretty sure it's considered a public meeting, and I just want to make sure that if we make this policy, that executive session is excluded from this.
I think you're right. That was an oversight, and you don't record executive sessions.
So we start off a meeting, just like we start off all of these meetings,
Sure.
opening it as a meeting of the select board, and then we go into into executive session.
I think
So
that's still a
that's
public
separate.
meeting, though. We have to take minutes. We have to post that it's happening.
It's not a public.
It's not a public meeting, but Courtney has
Just
an
falls under
answer.
open meeting law. That there's a certain section of open meeting law for executive session where we're required anyway to take minutes, and I record it myself on my little
That's
device,
right, you
simply
do.
just for the purpose of going back to the minutes later. But it's not videotaped. As soon as the public comment period closes and you move into
closed door.
executive session, it's closed door.
So
We've never.
don't need to add in here
No, I don't
excluding
think
executive
so.
session.
I mean,
Would it
you.
hurt to add that?
No.
I mean, we've never
happy
done
to
it.
add it.
You can do it, but we've never done it anyway. We've never brought the
yeah.
videos in.
It's sort of like, so we don't do it so much we didn't even think of it, that
Yeah.
it would to mention
Well,
it,
it's just
but
the
I can
first thing that
mention
came
it.
to my mind because
Yeah,
So you could
It's open
change the
meeting.
one word just from public to open.
sure, we can do, yes.
You see what I
open
mean?
instead.
Yeah, open meetings, because that's a technical term. I mean, not technical, it's a legal term.
Okay, we'll think about, Justina.
Well, having been chair recently, and for 8 years, chair of a regulatory board, the Board of Water Commissioners, people didn't have a problem making our meetings when their business was at hand in front of our committee. And they are transparent through the meeting minutes. And by my math, the regulatory boards are getting between 1% and 3% of the audience as a rating. And I think that has to be balanced against the fact that these are volunteer boards that have a lot of work to do and often a lot of pressure. The Board of Water Commissioners was really hard to run, and we had a lot of work to do in our meetings. And I would really be more comfortable if, at least in year one of the new policy, we left it up to the discretion of the committees, because they do have to assess how they feel, how best to accomplish the public business. And there is transparency. This is an additional transparency, but I think for 3% of people that like to watch the tapes.
Do you
You
mean
have to
three?
bet.
I'm
You
not
have,
sure what you mean when you say 3%.
well, you've given ratings. You've only given numbers for the year-round residents, but we've got to also think about your viewership numbers. I assume also include second homeowners. So.
They include everybody. There's no geographic distinction in this. There is distinction by...
Right, but what I'm trying to say is 500 people is you don't give us the base of total potential viewership. You only give us year-round residents.
Well, the base of total viewership would be the world. I mean, in theory.
Well, in any case, as a recent chair of a very, very challenging board, that I volunteered my time twice a month, and I had to keep up the morale of my committee because there are no staff to run that water system. I beg of you to let it be voluntary for the first year and respect the wishes of some of the committees that don't yet want to do it. I think their feelings and opinions about the very hard work they do should also count.
Tim? Oh, okay.
One more.
You always have one more.
I have
Go
one
ahead.
more. I keep it brief, though. I don't go on and on, usually.
You don't, yeah. Thank you.
I do have one concern also, and that is that I know it's hard to get people to serve on these boards.
Yeah.
And I worry that, honestly, one of the primary reasons that I considered not running for this seat was having to be filmed the whole time. I mean, I did it anyways. It's fine. I'm not everybody. I'm a pretty outgoing person. I'm not everybody. But these boards consist of all sorts of people. Some people more apprehensive than others, and I'd hate to see somebody who has the sort of intellectual capacity and could add some real value to a committee not want to do it because of being videotaped. And I understand that. I do. I went to school for fine art, and I know a lot of really highly intelligent, somewhat introverted people that would be interested in contributing. And I also do feel that these all being on TV means these seats are empty a lot of the time unless there's a controversial issue, And I like to see people in the audience and have some participation from the audience, and I think that's one valuable thing that we may lose by videotaping all these is just having board meetings in an empty room, and that's a concern of mine also.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
So-
if this is such a great idea, why not roll it out and make it optional the first year and assess, and then go from there. But the hardworking chairs and committees, they really should get some say over this in the beginning.
So, Mr. Sayre, what would you like to say?
Hi, Tim Sayre. How do you address ADA compliance?
I don't have the money to do closed captioning.
Okay,
If we could get a grant, then I absolutely would.
Okay, I'm going to give the board a word of warning. As you know, I'm an elected official in the state of Florida, and I can give you contacts. There's many people going out and making tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars every year suing small boards like this, small towns, small committees, and things like that for not having the closed captioning. There have been some recent rulings in the courts that said that if you live in North Carolina and you have no business with this town, then you couldn't. But that's only one case I've seen so far. But then they claimed, oh, well, I was thinking about moving to the town. So then their suit moved forward. And these boards are paying off. So far, the average payout, I believe, is around $65,000 in the state of Florida against every board that's been contacted. And closed captioning is not cheap. Okay, and it has to be done on the fly while it's live on the websites, according to the ADA compliance. And then it has to be also on the replays too. So I'm just going to suggest that you check that out before you start recording hundreds of hours of meetings and then finding out what it costs. We actually archived all of our stuff from a little over a year ago, and if you request it, then we have it closed captioned before we actually release it to anybody. And I agree that it's very important that this committee is filmed every time, okay? I don't know about all the other committees. I don't go to those other meetings. I come to this one. My wife watches this one online every time you guys meet. But I wasn't sure about the closed captioning, so I'm just going to put out that word of warning that there's people out there, there's lawyers out there making a ton of money off of every state in this country, and especially smaller that don't want to fight it. They just pay, and then they go get it done.
Do you have any idea how much it costs to have closed captioning?
I can call tomorrow and find out for you. I forget.
Yeah.
I don't want to state the number off the top of my head.
Yeah.
We opted
And Mia, you
for-
don't either?
I looked into it recently. It is,
Like
it's very
100,000,
expensive.
a million, 100, whatever?
It's in the 10 to 50,000 range, depending on how much you have to caption, I would assume. But
And not per meeting, but for the equipment?
you need, it's a service.
Yeah,
It's a
normally
You have to have
Okay.
somebody do it.
Somebody
And,
sits and watches this meeting, and you start talking, they start
They
typing.
really do?
But eventually,
Wow.
yeah, and that's what's with ours, but eventually, by the time you're at the end of a 4-hour meeting, they're 3 to 5 minutes behind on a lag.
Yeah.
So what you're saying will be 3 to 5 minutes later to the audience out there, which is fine, okay? They're not going to run down here to come scream at you because, they saw something on TV or on
Yeah.
the website, but it lags behind. And then it takes 3 to 5 days for them to clean it up because they're only 90 to 92% accurate on the fly, which is legal. And then they clean it up and make it better, and then they post it, and it's about 98% accurate when it's posted. I'm just throwing the warning out there that I
No,
can,
that's
I
good to
can
know.
name at least 50 places that have been sued or received the paperwork and have paid off. And you can touch base with the Florida Association of Special Districts, and I can get you in touch with them, and they'll show you the numbers that it's cost all these places just in Florida. And they're on many, many states. So I just want to throw that out there for you
Yeah,
guys. so you
something
know.
I certainly didn't know.
So I'm happy
Good,
to
thank
talk
you.
to, may I
Yeah.
say one thing? I'm happy to talk to every other town on the Cape and get in touch with their TA and ask, but there are 14 other towns, they all record almost all the regulatory boards, none of them that I'm
Yeah.
aware of do closed captioning. So either we also don't broadcast live, we're not currently able to, which is sad as far as the lag goes. But I am happy to ask them what they think about it.
Or, and if you could just look into it.
I'll find you the pricing that we got, and we priced it through about 5 different services. I'll be happy to do that.
yeah.
Take me about a day or two. I'll have to make some phone calls down and get
All
the
right.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair,
I
I need,
just-
no, I don't know what it is. Somebody has to tell me.
Closed
what-
captioning?
Yes, is that the
It's
little sort of line of
subtitles.
print?
Yeah, like when you
Yeah.
go, when you watch TV in like an airport and they have it.
Yes,
it's that.
okay, I wanted to be sure, but my question is, why on earth, is this for people who are hard of hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
Okay, that
it is
makes
an
sense.
ADA
I got it.
compliant.
Yeah.
I got it.
But because it's so expensive, I
just
don't know of
didn't
anyone
know
else who
what the
does
terms
it.
Well, so that's not the point, though. I mean, the
No,
point that
it's
he's
not the point.
making is that we need to find out about that. Go to the microphone. Well, I haven't said anything yet, you guys. So I have a question. I'll let Ms. Vermeeren go first.
I just had a couple of points. It was mentioned that, Justina, you mentioned that it would be good to do this on a voluntary basis. I recall when I was chair, it did come before us that we had the option to say yes or no to this, and at that time, the rest of the committee did not want to do it. My personal feeling is that it does take it up a level, and I agree, I understand what Michael's saying about maybe it would inhibit someone from being a part of a committee. However, we are recorded. It's everything that you say is already documented. If somebody wants to look up the minutes, it's already there. I think, I had to get used to the fact that I'm being recorded right now, and we've been in front of this committee a number of times and on some controversial issues, and I had to get over that real quick because here we are. We're trying to help be good citizens and participants in the town. The fact that it's a volunteer or not a volunteer doesn't really matter. As a regulatory board, I was sworn to follow the regulations, to uphold those regulations, and the open meeting laws are all good and well, but when somebody is in the audience and they're rolling their eyes or they're looking at you with, with some kind of a beckoning. You can't get that in the record. You can't get it on a recording. You can't, even when those things are transcribed, it doesn't always come out. When you read the minutes, there's so much left out because there has to be. You can't read every nuance into that, or it would be 10 pages long for each proponent.
Yeah.
So I'm in support, and I always have been in support of filming the regulatory boards primarily. I don't care about the others so much because the regulatory boards are there for a purpose. They're regulations that we have to follow as a town. So I think that's my most important concern. Thank you.
So back to closed captioning, and I don't understand how it all works, but wouldn't Comcast make that available? Like at,
They haven't for anybody else that I know of. What I'm also
I mean, I
happy
would
to do
think
is
they would be-
contact the state legislature and ask what their opinion is on this.
So, and again, I've had, a couple minutes to think about this, but it seems to me that the broadcaster would be the one responsible for that. So maybe, maybe in Massachusetts, maybe not, but that would be something I really, I would appreciate both of you guys checking on that because.
Service. You have to buy it as a service.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I mean, I agree that it seems like they should be, but I am fairly sure that they're not responsible.
So just wait, Helen, okay, you've spoken, I haven't asked. So I would like to know, I know that you are paid and the whole video program is paid by the, what is the
Comcast
Receipt Fund.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to write it on, I don't have back room. We have a lot of boards. I mean, when Tom started, when we had volunteers doing this, there was, very few few committees being recorded. So when you record everything, if you get to record everything, how much receipt funds is in the bank? When does that go over? And if that goes over, does the town have to start paying for this?
We have a very large reserve fund right now because we haven't tapped into it for about 8 or 9 years. We're going to ask, as we go through Comcast negotiations, it's about $75,000 again, which is more than enough to pay me and Andrew and Tom and just preserve our equipment and pay our fees and still have money. I make sure that we have quite a bit left over to put back into our reserve. And like I said, if I taped the regulatory boards, we would probably drop the non-regulatory boards for the accommodations of time and money. So I'm very cognizant of our budget because those are the funds we have. If we asked the taxpayers for it, that would be in the far distant future when we ran out of money, which I would
Well, just for you to be aware that, your enthusiasm and the town's enthusiasm to record these, to videotape them, but we have to think of select board down the line as how, when do you start going over budget? So, okay, if you feel you have enough. And I'm sorry that we didn't hear from any committees,
Did you really not receive any feedback?
So if you want to postpone this to your next meeting, we can look into the closed caption.
I definitely want to do this before we
And there
vote
also
on
were
this.
a couple of committees that responded, and
Okay.
I made a mistake by not including them in your packet.
Okay. So I know that some people have told me that they didn't want it on different committees, but it would be nice to hear that the committee writes something formally. And I agree with everybody that being on TV, being videotaped even and not on TV or recorded is often very difficult. And I like that Mike said maybe people wouldn't like to be on committees because of that, and you said that, so, and I thought it was an unusual thought to have, but he had it too, so.
Madam Chair?
I just want to look and see if I have any other things. And I do think eventually, and we are heading into the year 2020, that this is the future, that all committees, all whatever we want to call them, boards, regulatory boards, will be taped. I do want to hear from the committees if they have anything really reasonable, and I want to give them the second chance. I don't know why. Yeah, they need to write a little paragraph or something for us to say yes, no, and why. But a lot of stuff is really personal in these meetings, and I know you know that. And I know probably everybody here knows that. And by personal, I don't mean, I mean that when you're talking your regulatory board, you may mention names of properties or properties that you're discussing or comparing. So I was on the planning board, and we would often, especially for someone new like myself, you might say, well, you know, when we're trying to write a new bylaw and prevent this or that or add more of this or that, you might say, well, here's an example, and they would give the example of a house so that the new members could picture that. And that's pretty hard not to do. But I don't know, that's what I want to hear from the planning board. I'm glad the ZBA is doing it. I thought they did it. And yeah, just why, and Board of Health isn't doing it? And
Conservation.
Conservation
And water.
Planning Board and water.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Justina?
Well, it is a change, and I think sometimes it's good to roll change out and then let people become more comfortable. You could let the committees decide and also not make it an either or. Ask them, I don't know if this would be a hassle for your schedule, but they could decide on having important ones televised and then sort of dip their toe in it. And then we could work towards them, maybe year 3 it's mandatory. And that way volunteers know it's coming. But I think to sort of do it all at once in 1 year, and I can see that you're very passionate about it, but I think it'd be really practical to roll it in and begin with it being optional in the first couple of years.
May I clarify one thing?
I just want to ask you, does this have to go before town meeting or anything?
No.
It doesn't, does it?
Select board policy.
Yeah. I would say like you have until 2020 or something too, to get people acclimated or to let them know or to really get a response from them and how strongly they feel. But I kind of don't want to push this. Yeah. but anyhow.
May I make a response? So I have been rolling it out. We're coming up on 10 months now that I've been doing this job. And like I said, I've gone to every board and committee that would have me, and I've talked to them, and I've heard their responses.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I did misspeak. So Water said that they would have important meetings taped, but I didn't think of it because they haven't had me do one yet. They promised me that they would let me know if they had an important meeting. I don't know anywhere else that only tapes certain meetings of committees, but that's something I'm willing to do, as if that's what would work better. But right now it is voluntary. So what I've been rolling out over 10 months now is the process of doing it, and we've slowly ramped up from, we were doing like 3 to now we're doing 11. So it has been rolling. We're just at the point when there are some boards who don't want to do it. And I really don't want this to be adversarial. I have enormous
No,
respect
that's
for
what
our
I'm
volunteers.
that's how I feel too. I don't want to.
But I've definitely heard
somebody.
I've listened to them.
Okay. Kathleen, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say again that, you know, it's the business of the town. These are regulatory boards that are doing business for the town of Wellfleet. And I feel personally that they should be taped so that, you know, we can all, oh, okay, that happened or that happened. Where would we be if the select board said we didn't want to be taped? Where would we be? I'm all for this policy. I'm not, you know, I mean, I understand now the premise of maybe postponing it. I hope we don't have to bring you back for a whole nother presentation on this. But I think you've been very mindful and compassionate and gentle in the way that you have, you know, gone about this.
I've tried to be those things.
Very, very respective of that. So,
And I'm happy to come back as often as you'd like to have me.
So, yeah, I would like to hear
Madam Chair,
something. I know. I would like to hear from the boards and what they really have to say about why they don't want to, and if there is personal information or, you know, if they have to worry that much, that's not just about what they're wearing or something, I don't know. Something, you know, I would like to hear from the 4 of them.
Well, the reason I brought up all that information about the other boards, the other towns, is that almost everybody
Yeah,
else.
no, I hear you. I mean, it's the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I look forward, when, like, nobody even comes to, you can call into our meetings or something, or we can all be on our computers or our phones and have response from the outside. I mean, that is the way technology is going, so.
It is a little bit, and I totally hear you about not wanting to lose the people that are in the audience, and I hope we don't, and I am sorry to contribute to that, but I think that there's a larger trade-off in the people who get to see it, who couldn't come anyway.
It's hard to know.
I see
that.
So,
Helen.
finally, thank you. Two things. I went to select board meetings for about 4 years before I was elected to the select board in 2003, when, as I said, we started getting, and I was very aware of audience ebb and flow, and it hasn't changed. However, I do know, we don't get more empty seats. We didn't get more empty seats. We got as many empty seats as we do now. That's the point. It used to be in the library.
Okay.
So that's the number one thing. The second thing is, it's essential for good minute taking. Now, Courtney does a remarkable job putting a lot of stuff in the minutes.
She does.
And then I like to read through them, and I have to sometimes check things when I don't feel I remember them. That's where you get all my amendments, or anybody else's amendments. It is essential to have meetings where important decisions get made, even if it's like the Shellfish Advisory Board and they give us a recommendation. All the people on this board, which is the Shellfish Regulatory Board, would do well to be able to look at a shellfish.
I do.
Yes, you do, and I typically go to them, but the point is, I would like it if the parking task force had been videoed all this time, because that's just one meeting I've never been to.
They are taped. Do you watch them?
Oh, they are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so hey, I could do it. I just
And
thought
they
it
are
was
riveting.
From the very beginning.
But wait a minute. No, I didn't know that. Okay? But
Okay.
I just took it for granted.
So
But
okay.
here's the point. It's accountability.
Yeah, we know
And
this.
I would like to approve this policy right now, and I don't know why we kick the can down the road about this. Let's try it. Let's try it with all the regulatory boards and then some others for a year, and then see how they feel about it. I got used to being videoed within 2 months on the select board in 2003. You just get over it, and then, guess what? You can refer to it yourself.
Okay,
Madam
so
Chair,
let's.
Helen, with
so
all
let's
due respect,
move on.
I think
Yeah.
that's disrespectful to the committee chairs that have to do the work and aren't comfortable with it yet. There's nothing wrong with keeping it voluntary for a year. It hasn't been going on very long, and I think we have to be respectful of the committee chairs who, really, from being on a regulatory board recently, it's a tremendous amount of work and commitment.
So I'm going to
Through you,
move,
can I
no,
ask her
so
a
we're
question?
going
I
to
need
keep,
to ask a question of Justina. That is a reasonable point, but how are they ever going to know how they feel about it
Okay.
if they don't
If
experience
this
it?
is so great and it's going to have so many benefits, then it should stand on its merits as the community gets used to it. It's proven there's viewership, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it if they're still don't want to do it in a year. But generally, people need time to accommodate, to acclimate to change.
so we're going to postpone this anyhow because we're going to find out about closed captioning, right?
Okay.
So we're going to postpone this. I would love to hear like something concrete from the committees that don't want it, okay?
Okay. Do you want to reach out to them? Do you want me to?
I don't want to.
You and I can work
And I'll
together.
say that on TV.
Dan and
Yeah,
I will.
Dan
We'll
will,
get in touch.
yeah.
Yep.
And you, and just ask them, and you may say that the select board would like to know why, and other comments that were given.
Okay.
But that I feel like we need to postpone this until we find out about the closed captioning.
Okay.
Madam Chair, let us qualify that as some people on the select board, and that's legitimate, but the whole select board does not, they've had it for a year.
Okay, Helen, this is just kicking the can down the road. We got it, we're postponing it. We will get to talk about this again soon, okay? And we know, I mean, it's, it's going to happen, so. but we have to be clear on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mia.
Thanks, Mia.
You're welcome.
Arbor Committee,
Yay.
last but not
We
least.
didn't purposely put you last, but
Thanks a lot, Dan.
What'd you do to your foot?
Fractured a metatarsal,
Ooh,
but it's okay.
it's okay.
One more week.
cans
Take
down.
care
I was
of it.
kicking cans.
You need to get lots of massages. Yeah, you're kicking cans, yeah.
That was good.
Okay. So, for the audience, please tell us what you want to do.
My name is Tim Callis,
And I'm Trudy Ramirez.
and we're from the Wellfleet Arbor Committee. We're a private group, not a town-appointed group, and we are asking the town, the select board, for permission to plant 2 trees along the sidewalk that's parallel to the Memorial Park.
So it's noticeably bare there. And so I'm glad you're doing this, or you're asking for approval to do it. It has nothing to do with approval or not, but I've been looking at the space. And you can plant a tree, say from the sidewalk to the fence, because the hill starts to slope down. And you have enough room to get a good root ball in there?
There's 5 feet from the fence to the edge of the sidewalk. The root ball is...
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just measured it.
yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, there's
Good.
5 feet depth
Good.
of the planting bed.
good.
And the root ball is approximately 20 inches, I'd say, across, so...
Huh, great. So I'll just start off saying I'm all for this. We need the shade. People love the shade in the summertime. Trees are good for the air. They're good for cooling the sidewalks and the cars that drive by. And they're just, a beautiful break in that big open space that was left there. So I will hear from the rest of the board. Kathleen?
Yeah,
Kathleen had her hand up first.
the tree that you're planting, is this the same tree that you were suggesting for, in front of Town Hall?
No,
Different tree?
no.
That was a locust?
No, yeah, those were honey
No.
locusts.
No, they were elms.
You're going way
elms.
back. No, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
No, this is not the same tree that was in that plan, no.
Okay, so, but it will give us a shade canopy?
Exactly, and there are
um,
overhead
A
wires. that are-
color, it
Yeah,
has a
the
fall
fall.
color. And
Yeah.
then, my second question to this is, as this tree matures, is it likely to damage or lift the paving or the sidewalk?
I can't say completely that it won't, but Trudy?
We are looking at trees that are least likely to do that.
Yeah,
And so proper planting and proper protection, staying away from the sidewalk with the initial root ball does help all of these things. I don't think once you get 100 years out, you can say whether or not it would lift the sidewalk, but certainly a lot of the cases that we had where we had problems with the sidewalk, these were most likely seedlings that had dropped into a crack and they weren't planned. This is something that's planned, and we're doing tree selection with the shade canopy in mind, the resistance to disease and pest, and also the overhead wires, and being able to shade without interfering with the other plants. We've also spoken, the other plants in the Memorial Garden is what I was going to say. We've also reached out to, one of our members reached out to Holly Labart, who is responsible for the Memorial Park, her and her group, Live for Lou, and they are in full support of this. We are, again, reaching out to them to request if we can add on to their irrigation, so these would be irrigated. We haven't got an answer. None of us feel that it would be too much of a stretch to add 2 trees to a loop of drip irrigation. So we're hopeful that that happens, but they are in full support of that and see no problem that it would interfere with their work.
I
Madam
think it's
Chair.
great because, I think part of your premise in forming the Arbor Committee, as I understand it, recall, is that you did want to provide, more shade canopy for at least the central district. And if you've lived here as long as I have, you remember the Dutch elms that lined, Main Street. And the administrator at that time, again, cited liability issues in what they were doing to our sidewalks, and they were taken down. And many of them were diseased, I get that, but, I just came back from Martha's Vineyard, and that's an island that's a lot farther out in the water than we are. And there's more shade and more trees on that island than all of Wellfleet. I mean, I was just astounded at the shade canopy in Vineyard Haven, Edgartown, Oak Bluffs, the age of the trees. They must get severe weather and storms, and yet, it was just remarkable. And it adds so much more to a village center to have trees. It really does. I think it's great.
Ellen?
Yes. So why do I have my phone out in a meeting? It's because what do you mean red maple? It sounds great. I'm all for it. But all the good questions have been answered. But what the heck is a red maple tree? I typed it into Wikipedia and it didn't know what that is. Can we be a little more specific?
Yes, Acer rubrum is the Latin.
Uh-huh. And
Acer being maple, rubrum being red in Latin, and it's a native tree. We have them already turning beautiful reds and oranges all over near the marshes.
swamp maple.
Swamp maple's the other name.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I
just
use
wanted to
swamp
be
maple.
sure.
Those are common names. I use swamp maple a lot. A lot of people use red maple, and for the proposal, I wrote red maple. So.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, they're lovely, they're delicate. Mike?
It's the same tree that's by we used to call it the Four Phones, by the Verizon building. There's a red maple there. Is that a red maple?
Is there a red maple?
No, 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 no,
There's a red maple.
no, that's not.
I don't know what kind of
It's
maple.
not,
it
it's
is.
not a
maple
red
there.
maple, because I
Okay.
just drove by it, and I remember looking at it going, yeah.
Okay.
This is
The other point that I had to make was that that garden slopes back and down, so the potential for a root ball climbing up when there's plenty of space behind it
Right.
to buckle the sidewalk is highly unlikely. Most of those sidewalks buckled by elm trees and stuff were encased between buildings and sidewalk, like basically growing through the sidewalk. And part of the reason we don't have all that canopy here like we used to is because they were elms and they all got Dutch elm disease. And had to go. So I don't know what they have in the vineyard. Last time I was there, I was a little kid. But
Yeah. Courtney wanted to say something?
I was just going to say, there's a red maple swamp trail in East Hampton, the National Seashore, if you want to
That's
familiarize
right.
yourself with the tree. There's a whole path full of them.
It's great.
Yeah, they're beautiful. You making a motion?
You wish. First of all, thanks, and it's great to hear the family, the LeBart family is in support. And I think that that park is great that they have, but it's kind of in that location where the buildings burned down a long time ago. And I think the trees will be a nice transition, so it doesn't seem like such a brisk drop-off.
Yeah, yeah. No, it'll be really nice. Good. Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve the request of the Wellfleet Arbor Committee to plant 2 Acer rubrum red maple trees at the Memorial Park along in the part of it that's along Main Street, on the level of Main Street.
That sounds good, Helen. I'll second that.
All in
Acer
favor?
rubrum.
Thank you. Thank you guys for
Thank you so much.
continuing
Thanks for
to
your
help beautify
hard work.
Wellfleet and fight global warming. But it really, I mean, it really has looked naked for,
Yeah.
yeah.
It'll
does look
Yeah.
The park will grow up. It'll look.
The whole thing looks beautiful, yeah.
It'll provide a nice transition for
Yeah.
that park.
Heavy shade, heavy shade.
Okay, select board reports. Hearing none?
I have one.
move.
I have one, but
And it's long, Janet.
All right.
No, I'm kidding. I was up at the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board, which was great. It was a lot of town administrators, a lot of select board members from other towns. It was a very well-run meeting. We were in and out of there in an hour and 10 minutes, and with a long agenda. It was, and I think what the most notable thing to say is that they reported on the receipts gathered from the tax of the 2.75 water protection fund tax. And for the first month reported, that was July, it was 2.9 million. And we'll be hearing quarterly tallies and tallies of what Wellfleet contributed to that tax. And the committee itself is just working its way through the bylaws, which were approved. So nothing substantive's been done yet. But it looks to be a group that it's good we're in there with our elbows flying.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for doing that.
Thank
Do
you
you meet
very
once
much.
a month, or is there a schedule, or?
It looks like close to once a month,
Yeah.
but it's just one meeting.
So will you give, Madam Chair, will you be give us updates? Get the money, give us updates.
Well, we have to
I'll
have
do a
plan
thermometer
first,
like
right?
the
Yeah.
fundraising drive.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Mike?
No, I had,
Oh, a
I actually
report,
had an
yeah.
announcement that
Thank
I
you,
didn't
thank you,
announce
yeah.
when we had announcements, so may I do it as a report?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, go for it.
Basically, there's a meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. For the marina. And Helen, you know where it is, right?
Like
Is
the
it-
Marina
It's
Advisory Committee?
downstairs.
No.
No, it's downstairs at Town Hall, and then,
Oh, the Shellfish and Harbor Master meeting?
Yeah.
Do you want me to say?
Can
what
you
it is?
announce it?
Yeah.
in the mic.
The Shellfish and Harbor Master departments are meeting with Wellfleet shellfishing boat owners tomorrow, Tuesday, October 8th at 8 a.m. in the downstairs conference room at Town Hall. The goal is to build a consensus for how we manage Duck Creek shellfishing area, and there's information on the town website. I think I posted it on the Shellfish department, the Harbor Master department, as well as the town calendar.
Good, that's a needed meeting.
And
No, it's a change in the DMF regulation.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's-
and how are we going to
good.
accommodate it? And it is downstairs at Town Hall?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah,
pretty
I am
important
going,
meeting, actually.
I am going, so.
Ask them how they feel about the Shellfish Shack while you're there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's going to be time for that. It's going to be,
Yeah,
it's a pretty important
Are you-
meeting.
and
under
are you
new
going,
FDA.
Mike?
Yeah, I would like to go if,
Yeah.
And I'm going.
there's, yeah, if no one else really needs to.
I can't go tomorrow morning, I can't go, yeah, but good, great. Any other select board reports? Any comments on the town administrator's report? Or questions? Any topics for future discussion? I've got some here.
I have some.
Okay, you can start.
So I'm a little confused, and perhaps we can have a clarification about how, at our next meeting, just briefly, how correspondence is being documented and cataloged. Do you see what I'm saying? I used to keep the paper that we'd get in our packet, and we are changing the way we're doing it, okay? But I rely on having a record, right, to look at, to see, oh, we got that letter at such and such a time. And maybe we could have that in the future as just a kind of explanation of how this is going to work.
I would like to suggest that we discuss that at a working meeting when we discuss the overall meeting stuff, because since I came on in January, I was never informed I had to keep a log. And then I was informed it was the clerk of the board's job, and I was informed that a couple of past clerks had been doing it. I know that Jean takes some correspondence in, but nobody's keeping a record. So I personally would like to formalize how this is done also. I think it would be good to have a process
Yeah,
for it.
that's a
And a
good
lot of
idea,
it
yeah.
has to deal with how the administration office operates. So
Yes.
I would be glad to put that on a future agenda item
Okay.
for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, so it's another thing about this, and it's sort of related, and it could come up in the work meeting, briefly. I brought it up before, and Roger Putnam.
What is it?
It's
Yeah.
about archiving digitally all our records. And as I said, and just to be able to discuss it, in other words, Cape Cod Commission did it for about $30,000. And I think it might be a good thing, and we look at it as a warrant article, but I'd like to discuss it and the pros and cons of it, you know. That's all. I'm done.
I would
You
just
wanna
say
say
that
something?
the electronic archive is on the website. That's basically our database for it now, and I have all electronic files. I don't print any meeting minutes, and nothing I have is printed anymore. It's all on the website or on the drive, so that's also something we can discuss with the town clerk based on how records management is done, because I'm pretty sure the town did decide to go digital a while ago, so.
No,
I
I'm
think Helen's
talking
talking
about
all the
30
records
years
in the
ago.
in the past.
She's talking about
Past records.
archives, like old, real
You want to
archives.
digitize them? Yeah, we have to find them first, so.
Yeah,
Since
because.
the town hall burnt down.
But we'll put it on a.
Okay,
another
okay,
item.
good. Let's move on. I have two things. It's too bad Lydia left. The recycling committee had posted a resolution to combat nips and single-use water bottles. Did anybody see that? Anybody get the email?
Yes.
So we could ask them to come if there is a petition or if there's something that's going on onto the legislation, or they just want it for here. Wasn't clear what they wanted.
I think one of the state representatives does have, I think one of the representatives from near Off Cape has a proposed legislation
Okay.
about this. But it came to, we're talking about the NIPS bottles. So we could put it on a future agenda item for sure,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and see, do you think the recycling committees would be the ones that we should contact?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll look
yeah.
further into it because there is a House, or there's some sort of bill through the
Something,
House
yeah.
or
The
Senate.
recycling committee's already on this.
Yeah, but do they have
They
the,
have the wording, they have the, they're ready to go.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so if you,
Yeah.
I mean, I could ask them to. And then there's a petition against the Cutler bill that was asking for signatures, and it was unclear where that is, or is there a date?
The Cutler bill that we wrote the letter about, yeah, I sent that letter that you all signed off to
No,
everybody who was on it.
No, this is the shellfish one. This is the shellfish
Yeah, we are-
initiative.
Yeah, you had a letter.
We sent a
You
letter
signed the letter, and I
saying
sent
we
it
were
out to the
supporting it.
presenters of the bill, the chair. the
Okay, so
committees.
that's what they're talking about?
I have not heard of this since I sent the letters. If there's another question, I don't know how to answer
Did you-
because I've
did
sent
you
the
guys-
letter
did
off.
you-
Apparently,
Yeah.
there's a petition being circulated for people to sign that are against it. Has nothing to do with our letter. There's another
Yeah.
petition that's out there circulating. I don't know who's
Yeah.
circulating the petition. I haven't seen
Yeah.
it.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen the petition.
So, and
Okay,
there
thank
will
you.
be a future concern, or we'll have it as an agenda item. There's going to be, it's going to be that committee that's got it on their table, and the state committee is going to have a hearing about it. And I think it's October, what is it?
I want to say like the
29th or something.
23rd or the 25th
Yeah,
or something.
and
Yeah.
so that's going to be
Yeah.
something that will come up and we need to talk about. Shellfish Regulatory Board. Yeah.
Yep. But if there's yeah, okay, good. Anything else?
Future concerns? I guess the Shellfish Shack. I'm serious.
I want to let it slide a little bit. No, I know. I'm kidding. Yeah, let's, well, so for all of those people listening, send in your ideas, and whatever. But I mean, I'm ready to let it go or do something with it too, so. Okay, Shellfish Shack. Good.
Again.
Madam
Again,
Chair,
yeah.
I thought we left it that we'd give.
The lady, yeah.
Yeah,
Miss
that we
Pam
give the audience
Grandin.
members who wanted to do something about it a little time,
Yeah.
and since we're not I mean,
All the people watching us on video being recorded can respond. Okay,
All right,
let's
so
move
I was
on.
being a little sarcastic
I am
there, but
too.
that's okay.
Oh, Mrs. Shaw.
We'll talk about it.
our heads. It's been a long night.
Yeah, I thought we'd be out of here by 9. Jeez. Okay, any more future discussion topics? And everybody's aware that we're having a work meeting next Tuesday at 2:00? Okay.
Where?
Upstairs?
I haven't sent the agenda yet because I only heard from Janet at 3 o'clock this afternoon that it was approved, so I'm sending it tomorrow and posting it tomorrow. But
Okay.
I had told you all that it was going to be the 15th of October at 2, so it's still standing.
Yeah.
And we'll be discussing the
And we're
marijuana policy.
upstairs. Are we upstairs or
Why?
downstairs?
Why can't we be downstairs?
I'm going to put it for downstairs because
Oh,
who
you
knows
are,
who will show
okay.
up.
Yeah.
Because I like upstairs, that's why.
Well, because if people show up,
I
it's
know,
inhospitable.
I know, Helen. Make that leap there. Okay, anybody else? Okay, minutes
So we're looking at the amended minutes that only,
came in
yeah.
right before our meeting.
It was a very long set of minutes. Anybody have anything?
I move that we move the minutes.
May I move that we approve them?
Yes.
Everybody, ready?
Second?
I move that we approve the minutes of Tuesday, September 24th, 2019, as amended.
All in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you,
And
Helen.
who would like to move to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
you, Helen.
And a third, and we all approve? Say,
Yeah.
good, thank
Out.
you.
Hungry.